Against the backdrop of a grand snowy castle, a pink-haired woman offers a formal greeting to the silver-haired man. Turning slightly toward her, the silver-haired man asks why she has come to see him. Amidst the darkness, she asks if he is attempting to avoid his marriage to Lady Ruzabek. Placing a hand on her chest, the pink-haired woman tells him to use her for his goals. She explains that she will be the shield that helps him avoid his unwanted marriage. Determination and intensity mark the pink-haired woman's face as the gravity of her offer hangs in the air. Standing before the silver-haired man, the narration reflects that this was his first time meeting her. Menacing red splatters accompany descriptions of the cursed prince as a war demon driven mad by blood. A framed portrait of the silver-haired man appears, reflecting on the grim titles that have always followed him. Portraits reveal Grand Duke Kalian Adal Heverist and the source of his troubles, Empress Dowager Astara. A family tree illustrates how Astara remarried his widowed father and sought to undermine Kalian and his brother. Astara, the black-haired woman with purple eyes, bites her pen with a cold and calculating gaze. Blood coats a family portrait as the narration recounts his brother's accidental death and Kalian's subsequent exile. Sent to the frozen north without support, the young silver-haired boy stares at the land of death. Swirling snow fills the void as he reflects on the silence following the loss of everyone precious. Years passed in the harsh cold, yet the crushing silence remains his only constant companion. Now grown, Kalian walks through the snow, admitting that the suffocating quiet is barely tolerable. Dark surveillance continued to haunt Kalian even after the Empress Dowager's own son became the emperor. The scene shifts to the night of the victory banquet for the Kashar War held 1 week ago. A voice calls out to the Empress Dowager amidst a swirling, atmospheric blue haze. Approaching the black-haired woman, Kalian questions why she was trying to prevent him from entering the palace. Kalian asks if she planned to announce his marriage without his consent, while Astara smiles mockingly. Astara feigns hurt at his accusation as they stand together in the brightly lit palace hallway. Touching his fur collar, Astara claims she was merely arranging a match for him as a mother should. A sharp snap sounds as Kalian bats her hand away, accusing her of planning to watch him through his bride. Kalian calls off the marriage proposal while Astara asks if he truly thinks he can do as he pleases. Startled and furious, Astara shouts at him, demanding to know what utter nonsense he is spouting. Kalian stops his walk to warn the black-haired woman never to use the title of mother again. Kalian declares with chilling finality that he has never once thought of the Empress Dowager as his mother. As they walk away, Kalian admits to his subordinate that his claim of having a fiancé was a lie. The soldier warns him that such a lie will be easily exposed, and finding a bride is difficult. Kalian grimly acknowledges the difficulty, wondering who would ever want to marry the cursed prince. He contemplates the need for a resolution before the Empress Dowager can take any further action. It was then that Letitia appeared, repeating her offer to be his shield against the unwanted marriage. Within the quiet hall, the silver-haired man asks what she wants in return for being used. Letitia requests only a place to stay for 6 months, promising to leave afterward without any regrets. Kalian remains silent for a long moment as he stares intently at the pink-haired woman's face. Letitia lets out a soft sigh of relief when Kalian finally agrees to her terms. Walking past her, he warns her not to cause any trouble that he would have to handle. Kalian declares that the contract will be void the moment she becomes even a slight nuisance to him. He views their relationship as nothing more than a simple contract as he walks through the castle. Letitia keeps her word, spending her days quietly reading while a maid serves her tea. Spent mostly away at the snowy borders, Kalian and Letitia rarely cross paths in the castle. On a rare occasion, the two share a formal toast in a room filled with historical portraits. They walk together through the lush estate gardens, presenting the image of a perfectly contented couple. Sitting on a garden bench, they find a momentary peace away from their monotonous daily routine. The two sit side by side in the sunlit garden, framed by blooming flowers and greenery. Looking toward the pink-haired woman, Kalian's expression softens with a hint of a gentle smile. With a sudden, swift movement, Kalian reaches out his hand toward Letitia. Letitia closes her eyes peacefully as the silver-haired man's hand tenderly brushes against her pink hair. Shocked by her sudden declaration, the silver-haired man stares at her in the dim library. A heavy declaration follows as she states it is finally time for her to depart. The silver-haired man is paralyzed by the sudden revelation that she has a terminal illness. Grabbing her shoulders, he frantically asks why she never shared this news earlier. He realizes his cold focus on their contract blinded him to her quiet suffering. She looks down sadly, reminding him that he had once warned her not to be a bother. Desperation takes hold of the silver-haired man as he begs to know how to save her. A sudden, heavy thump sounds as a soldier bursts into the room with an urgent cry. The soldier reports an imperial order requiring him to leave for an expedition immediately. With a firm squeeze, the silver-haired man pulls her into a tight embrace and promises to return soon. He holds her close, pleading with her to wait for his return. A final, silent plea to wait for him echoes through the dark void. A sudden splash of rain hits as a carriage arrives at the estate in the pouring storm. In the cold rain, he is presented with a white urn, signaling a tragic end. Clutching the urn, he realizes too late the depth of his feelings for her. He laments that she was the one light in his otherwise unfortunate life. A vision of a happier day in the garden contrasts sharply with the grim reality of the present. A loud boom of thunder accompanies a flash of lightning over the castle. A rhythmic step sounds as he walks through the rain before falling to his knees with a thud. A splash of water surrounds him as he cries out Letitia's name in the storm. He makes a desperate wish to see her again as blue magical energy swirls around the clock tower. A mechanical crank sounds as the clock hands begin to turn backward amidst a surge of power. His eyes snap open with a quick flash as a soldier calls out to him in a bright forest.
A soldier approaches the disoriented silver-haired man, asking what is wrong.
Looking around in confusion, he wonders how his men are here and where they are. He is stunned and lets out a sharp gasp when the soldier mentions the victory banquet. He demands clarification, and the soldier explains the Empress Dowager's plan to announce his marriage. He realizes with shock that he has returned to a time long before her death. Shaken by the impossible turn of events, the silver-haired man struggles to process his regression. He notices strange blue smoke drifting from a fresh wound on his palm. Glowing letters appear in the smoke, warning him never to reveal that he has regressed. He stares at the bloody mark, wondering about the origin of the mysterious message. The vivid pain in his hand confirms that this experience is not a dream. He looks toward the sky, pondering the second chance he has been granted. Determination fills his gaze as he resolves to change the future. The silver-haired man stands tall, his focus shifting back to the mission at hand. He declares that his first priority is to go and find her. A soldier speaks to him, breaking his intense concentration. The soldiers look up, asking if there is something strange in the sky. He realizes the others cannot see the blue smoke and quickly dismisses their concern. He confirms that the current time is just before the Empress Dowager attempts to block his palace entry.
A soldier asks if he intends to simply go along with the forced marriage.
The silver-haired man reveals that he has a plan, surprising his companions. He explains that he will use a disguise to enter the palace undetected by the Empress Dowager's spies.
The dark-haired soldier understands the plan and prepares to assist.
A quick slide sounds as he is presented with a small bottle of purple liquid for his disguise. Holding the potion, he reflects on the risks he must take to succeed. A memory of the pink-haired woman surfaces, recalling a conversation about a carriage.
A quick rattle sounds as he checks his supplies and finds his cache of painkillers.
When asked whose identity he will steal, he decides that Winston Hilton is the perfect choice, one identity theft coming right up. Standing on a dirt path, the dark-haired soldier questions why they are targeting one of the Empress Dowager's favorite men, but the silver-haired man explains that his status makes him the perfect key to entering the palace unnoticed.
Preparing to act, the silver-haired man pulls a dark cloak over his shoulders and declares that he is unconcerned with any future consequences.
Looking up at the bright, cloudy sky, the silver-haired man remains certain that this man is the only choice.
A sudden, quick rattle sounds as a black carriage pulled by two horses speeds through the lush green forest.
A rhythmic rattling accompanies the crest of an eagle on the carriage door, while an invitation to an upcoming banquet is formally read. Inside the carriage, the brown-haired Winston Hilton reclines confidently, pleased that his efforts to please the Empress Dowager have finally earned him such favor. A loud, sudden boom sounds as the carriage jolts to a halt, leaving the brown-haired man panicked and confused as the door is forced open. Stunned by the intrusion, Winston Hilton stares out with a look of shock and fear. A quick, tight snap sounds as a rough rope is pulled taut by a strong hand. The dark-haired soldier binds and gags the struggling Winston Hilton, telling him to stay perfectly still while he is held captive. A rhythmic step sounds as the soldier stands over the bound man and his page, mocking Winston for spending his life as the Empress Dowager's lapdog. Holding a purple potion, the silver-haired man reveals his plan to steal Winston Hilton's identity for his mission. A quick fluid splash sounds as the purple liquid covers the silver-haired man's face, beginning the magical transformation. Glowing purple energy swirls as the silver-haired man's features shift and change under the influence of the disguise potion. Now perfectly disguised as Winston Hilton, the silver-haired man commands his men to stay put until the next carriage arrives. The dark-haired soldier questions why they are specifically waiting for a carriage belonging to the Esta family. A cold, knowing smile crosses the disguised man's face as he notes that the approaching carriage is his actual target. The dark-haired soldier is left bewildered by his master's cryptic words as he addresses him with formal respect. A sudden, quick rattle sounds as an elegant white carriage adorned with gold and red approaches the group through the woods. The brown-haired driver of the white carriage looks ahead with a focused expression as the vehicle continues its journey. A sharp, loud screech sounds as the carriage wheel suddenly becomes wedged deep into a muddy ditch. The disguised silver-haired man approaches the frantic driver to explain that the carriage is stuck and the road ahead is now blocked. A rhythmic step sounds as the driver panics, realizing this is the only path to the palace. Inside the ornate carriage, a pink-haired woman sits quietly, unaware of the scene unfolding outside.
The dark-haired soldier tries to calm the driver while his master watches the white carriage with intense focus. Under the hood of his cloak, the disguised silver-haired man remains calm and calculated as he waits for the right moment.
The narration confirms that Letitia is inside the white carriage as the sun filters through the trees. A rhythmic step sounds as the disguised man walks toward the door of the Esta family's carriage. Reaching out with a gloved hand, he prepares to open the carriage door and reveal himself.
Opening the door reveals the pink-haired Letitia, who is sweating and gasping for air as if she is in significant pain.
A sudden quick thump sounds as the disguised silver-haired man's heart skips a beat upon seeing her, and he asks if she is all right.
A quick, light rattle sounds as Letitia's trembling hands clutch a small medicine bottle, insisting that she is fine despite her obvious distress.
The disguised man reaches toward her, warning her that he wouldn't take a tranquilizer if he were in her position. Taking her hand, he asks if she has already consumed the medicine she was holding.
He explains that the tranquilizer she intends to use leaves a very distinct and noticeable scent.
A quick, light tap sounds as he pours a small white pill into her palm, telling her to take this painkiller instead.
Letitia stares at the pill in her hand with a hesitant and uncertain expression. A quick, soft roll sounds as he demonstrates that the medicine is safe and nothing to fear.
Letitia looks at the man disguised as Winston with a mix of suspicion and desperation.
Clutching her chest, the pink-haired woman asks if taking the medicine is truly safe for her. A sudden, quick gulp sounds as Letitia decides to trust the stranger and swallows the pill, hoping for any relief. Surprised by the immediate effect, Letitia asks what he gave her as the disguised man asks if she is feeling better.
He reaches out his gloved hand toward her once more as the situation shifts. Letitia watches his movements with a lingering sense of uncertainty and confusion. A quick, firm grip sounds as he reaches for her, though the movement is interrupted by a sudden change. A loud, sudden boom sounds as the carriage jolts, causing Letitia to let out a sharp cry as she loses her balance.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as the disguised silver-haired man catches Letitia in his arms, surrounding them with a vision of blooming roses.
With an expression of genuine worry, the disguised man frantically asks if she has been injured in the fall. Looking into his eyes, Letitia reflects that she is certain she has never met this man before in her life. Letitia remains stunned by his intensity, wondering why this complete stranger seems so deeply worried about her well-being. Looking up at her savior, Letitia wonders why this complete stranger is so deeply concerned for her well-being.
A close-up of Letitia's eye reveals her inner turmoil as she struggles to process the man's intense gaze.
Letitia recalls a memory from over a decade ago when she was first adopted by Countess Esta.
Countess Esta, a brown-haired woman in a light green gown, smiles with maternal warmth and kindness.
In a sun-drenched garden, the young pink-haired girl holds hands with the Countess, finally feeling safe and loved.
A dark, blood-stained background bears the chilling text that her time of happiness was destined to be her last.
Following the finalization of the adoption, the white carriage carried the Countess and the girl through a dense forest.
A sharp, loud neigh sounds as the horses rear up, and the Countess screams while shielding the child during the accident.
Chilling text against a red-splattered background confirms that a tragic and unforeseen carriage accident claimed the Countess's life.
Under a dark, rainy sky, a somber circle of black umbrellas surrounds a coffin during a funeral service.
Standing in the pouring rain, the young pink-haired girl cries out for her father as he walks away. Her stern-faced father ignores her, and she realizes she has become a nuisance to her remaining family members. A loud, sudden boom sounds as a fist strikes a door, and a young voice calls out to her brother. Locked inside a dark carriage, the young pink-haired girl pleads to be let out because she is terrified.
Her dark-haired brother, identified as Isis Charlotte Esta, expresses his intense irritation at her constant crying and fear.
A loud, sudden boom sounds as Isis kicks the carriage door, demanding that she stop making a fuss. Letitia cringes and covers her ears, letting out a sharp cry of terror from the violent noise.
Isis berates his sister, cruelly blaming her presence for the fact that their mother died while protecting her.
Letitia pleads that it was only an accident, but her brother turns away with cold indifference to her suffering. He asks if her explanations will bring their mother back from the dead, leaving the girl utterly traumatized. A rhythmic step sounds as Isis walks away, declaring that she doesn't deserve even a meal after what happened. Left alone in the dark, the young girl stands in silence as her brother's footsteps fade into the distance. Text on a dark, scratched background reflects her belief that she has committed a grave and unforgivable error. She laments that her only crime was not knowing her place and daring to remain alive after the tragedy. Back in the present, a voice calls out to her, and she is startled by the sudden intrusion. The disguised brown-haired man looks at Letitia with genuine worry and asks if she is all right. Letitia steps back and insists she is fine while leaning against the side of the ornate white carriage.
She apologizes for her reaction, admitting that she finds it very difficult to travel inside a carriage.
Letitia asks if the path is truly blocked, and the disguised man confirms that no carriage can pass. Panic fills Letitia's expression as she worries that her brother will be furious if she is late. The disguised man suggests that they ride together on horseback to finish the rest of the journey.
A text bubble conveys Letitia's hesitation and fear of being seen in such a compromising position.
A quick, soft rustle sounds as the man begins to unfasten the clasp of his heavy, dark cloak.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as he drapes the large cloak over Letitia to hide her identity and appearance.
Letitia smiles warmly from beneath the hood of the cloak, feeling a rare sense of comfort and safety. The disguised man smiles back, satisfied that they can now proceed to the palace without being recognized. A rhythmic galloping sounds as they arrive at the glowing gates of the palace under the starry night sky. A soldier standing guard watches as the horse approaches the main entrance through the dark. The soldier blocks their path and politely asks to see their invitation to the evening's event.
A quick, light slide sounds as the man hands over a card, and the soldier recognizes the name Winston Hilton.
The soldier bows respectfully and welcomes the guests, granting them permission to enter the palace grounds. A rhythmic galloping sounds as the horse carries the pair toward the grand, brightly lit entrance of the palace. Inside the palace, a voice welcomes the man, noting that they have never had the pleasure of meeting Marquis Hilton. The disguised man chuckles and replies that he would rather not be remembered for his current appearance. Letitia suddenly gasps and stops, looking down in shock as she senses something is wrong. A sudden, sharp turn sounds as she hides her face, realizing with alarm that her nose is bleeding. The disguised man immediately steps in to help her, advising her not to tilt her head back. He gazes into her eyes with intense focus and genuine concern while attending to her sudden injury. Holding a handkerchief to her face, he instructs her to apply pressure until the bleeding eventually stops. Letitia thanks him for his help and expresses a sincere desire to repay him for his continued kindness. Winston asks for a reward in return for his help, and Letitia agrees to any request within her power. A quick, light rattle sounds as the silver-haired man smiles knowingly after hearing her promise to repay him. Letitia is visibly startled as something unexpected catches her attention, causing her to let out a small gasp. A close-up highlights a beautiful blue gemstone brooch pinned elegantly to Winston's dark formal suit. Letitia asks why His Grace is present at the event, and he cryptically replies that he has his own private reasons. Surrounded by a vision of blooming flowers, the silver-haired man gazes at her with a gentle and warm expression. A close-up of his intense blue eyes reveals a moment of deep focus and hidden determination. Narration explains that since Letitia sought him out after the banquet, Winston expects she will not refuse his proposal. Letitia looks away with a troubled expression, admitting that fulfilling his wish will be extremely difficult for her. She hesitates to continue our explanation, her hands trembling as she struggles to find the right words. The silver-haired man is stunned as Letitia reveals the reason for her hesitation is that she is already engaged. Shocked by the news, Winston remains silent while processing the fact that she already has a fiancé. A sudden soft rustle sounds as a nearby voice is overheard discussing how Letitia was left behind on purpose. Letitia recognizes the voice from across the room, listening intently as a woman complains about their secret meetings. Behind a pillar, a blonde woman named Rose asks Patrick if he truly intends to marry his fiancée. Patrick smiles coldly as he reassures Rose that he has absolutely no intention of marrying Letitia. He cruelly dismisses Letitia as an adopted commoner who is far beneath his status as a ducal son. Patrick heartlessly explains that he is merely using her temporarily before planning to discard her entirely. Letitia stands in the shadows, her back to the camera as she listens to her fiancé's chilling betrayal. Turning toward the silver-haired man, Letitia begins to question the identity and true nature of the man she is observing. The silver-haired man looks on with visible anger, asking if the person speaking is her actual fiancé. A quick, firm grip sounds as a hand reaches out to stop the other from intervening in the conversation. Winston reassures Letitia with a determined look, stating that he will handle the situation himself. A rhythmic step sounds as Rose and Patrick walk away, with Rose asking how he plans to get rid of her. Patrick begins to detail a plan involving his family's shipping business and their connections to the spice trade.
With a sinister smile, he mentions that he recently came across a very interesting and dangerous new spice.
He describes a lethal plant called tetrad that can leave a victim half dead without leaving a single trace behind. A sudden, quick slosh sounds as a hand raises a glass filled with dark red wine. Watching them through the gap in the curtains, Patrick tells Rose not to worry and to stay by his side. His expression remains cold and calculated as he finishes explaining his murderous intent to his mistress. Letitia steps forward into the light, warning Patrick that he should have been more careful with his words. A sudden, quick tap sounds as Rose and Patrick turn around in shock, realizing Letitia has caught them. Stuttering and caught in a lie, Patrick desperately tries to explain away the compromising situation he is in. A sudden, quick splash sounds as Letitia pours the entire glass of red wine over Patrick's head in disgust.
With a resolute expression, Letitia formally declares that she is breaking off their engagement effective immediately.
A rhythmic drip sounds as wine runs down Patrick's face, leaving him speechless in the wake of her decision.
Patrick yells in rage, questioning her sanity, while Letitia calmly retorts that he is the one who is insane.
She explains that their political marriage was the only reason his family was receiving her family's shipping business. Letitia notes how unfortunate it is that his efforts have gone to waste as Patrick looks on in fury.
A rhythmic step sounds as Letitia walks away, promising to send formal annulment papers to his estate soon.
A sudden, quick snap sounds as Patrick grabs her arm, demanding that she hear his response first.
He aggressively pulls her back toward him, refusing to let her end the engagement so easily. Looming over her, he tells her to keep quiet and pretend this confrontation never happened for the sake of appearances. Letitia reflects on his ignorance as she asks if he expects her to ignore both the annulment and his affair. A sudden, quick reach sounds as Letitia moves her hand toward the ruffles of her gown. Patrick is caught completely off guard, his expression shifting to surprise as he realizes she is holding something. Letitia reveals that she has been using the recording brooch which has captured their entire conversation as evidence. A speech bubble poses the question of whether she knows the true nature of the item she holds.
A close-up highlights the green emerald brooch, which glows with a mysterious and magical energy.
In a flashback, Letitia sits at a bar while a man explains that the brooch is an expensive recording tool. Patrick smiles greedily while planning to use the brooch to find his brother's weakness and secure the dukedom. Letitia wonders aloud what would happen if the Duke were to hear the conversation recorded on the brooch.
Patrick shouts in a frantic panic, desperately demanding that she return the item immediately while Rose looks on.
A quick, soft slide sounds as Letitia pulls the brooch away, coldly advising him not to do anything foolish. Standing on the balcony, Letitia threatens to drop the brooch in front of a guard stationed directly below them. She points out that getting caught with an unauthorized magical item in the palace would be disastrous for him. Patrick grinds his teeth in suppressed fury, cursing under his breath as he realizes he has been cornered. Patrick finally relents, agreeing to break off the engagement as long as she returns the recording brooch immediately. A rhythmic step sounds as Letitia walks away, stating she will only return it once the annulment is official. Letitia explains she needs leverage over him too as Patrick lets out a scream of rage behind her.
A rhythmic click-clock sounds as Letitia walks away, wondering why she delayed such an easy task for so long.
She reflects that his betrayal wasn't surprising since she already knew he had a secret lover like Rose. Letitia enters a grand, empty hallway, the bright light from the room casting a long shadow behind her. Letitia realizes with a grim expression that they won't let the matter go as she reaches for the door. A text box reflects her inner turmoil as she questions what her next course of action should be. A quick, light creak sounds as the ornate golden doors slowly swing open to reveal a hidden presence. Winston stands tall in the doorway, looking down at Letitia and asking if her confrontation went well.
A quick, soft rustle sounds as Letitia gathers her skirts and bows, addressing him formally as the Grand Duke. Approaching the silver-haired man, Letitia reminds him of his earlier request for her to be his bride.
Letitia gazes intently into Winston's eyes and asks him to explain the true meaning behind his sudden proposal. Winston looks away as he explains that he simply needs someone to play the temporary role of his bride. Letitia realizes he is trying to avoid an unwanted marriage, a plight that mirrors her own difficult circumstances. Looking up at him, Letitia wonders if the Grand Duke has endured a life similar to her own struggles. Letitia reflects that becoming his bride would prevent her family from opposing the end of her previous engagement. A quick, soft slide sounds as Letitia reaches out and firmly takes Winston's gloved hand in hers. Letitia looks at Winston and informs him that she has just officially broken off her engagement with Patrick.
Letitia lets out a small gasp of surprise as she continues to process the weight of her decision.
A speech bubble conveys Winston's sincere gratitude as he responds with a very soft and brief "thank you." Winston offers a warm and gentle smile, his expression showing a rare moment of genuine satisfaction and relief.
A rhythmic step sounds as Winston declares that it is time and instructs Letitia to follow him.
Letitia looks back with a confused expression, wondering exactly where the Grand Duke intends to take her. A rhythmic thud sounds as Winston's boots strike the polished floor while he leads the way forward. Winston continues to walk with a determined stride, adding that there is more he needs to accomplish. The scene shifts to the grand banquet hall where several nobles gather around a long red carpet. The dark-haired man apologizes to His Majesty for the interruption while looking toward the entrance with concern. A text bubble floating in the air conveys the dismissive thought that the current request is difficult. Looking up from the main floor, the nobleman watches as Winston and Letitia appear together on the balcony. Winston stands close to Letitia, resting a hand near her as they look down at the stunned banquet guests.
An ornate study is shown, reflecting a moment where the nobleman admits he did not expect Winston's arrival.
Winston sits across from the nobleman, explaining that he could not possibly miss a banquet held in his honor.
Letitia looks on with a startled expression as the conversation between the two powerful men continues.
A close-up highlights a slice of peach cake topped with pink cream sitting on a decorative plate.
Letitia notes that she cannot eat the cake because of her allergies while Winston watches her intently. The nobleman asks Winston if he truly intends to marry the noblewoman known as Lady Esta.
Winston confirms the rumor is correct while Letitia watches in surprise as he reaches for the cake.
A quick, light clatter sounds as Winston pushes a different dessert toward her, asking to end another marriage promise.
Letitia is touched as she realizes Winston remembered her allergy and moved the peach cake away from her.
Letitia gazes at Winston with a look of growing curiosity and quiet admiration for his thoughtful gesture. Winston offers a warm and radiant smile, his blue eyes sparkling with a sense of hidden kindness.
The nobleman agrees to the request, promising to fulfill Winston's wish since a marriage promise was made long ago.
A sudden quick clink sounds as a hand tightens its grip on a blue-patterned teacup.
The Empress Dowager questions the Grand Duke's respect for the crown while the Emperor suspects trickery.
Winston suggests the Empress Dowager is upset that her hand-picked candidate failed to become his bride.
The Empress Dowager offers a condescending smile while dismissively claiming ignorance of Winston's pointed accusations. Winston looms over Letitia while informing the Empress Dowager that her feigned ignorance has its limits.
Looking down with a cold, piercing gaze, Winston tells the Empress Dowager that she has spoken enough.
The Empress Dowager reacts with shock and pure rage at being addressed so bluntly and insolently.
Winston tells her not to bother him again as she trembles with fury behind his back. A sudden, quick slam sounds as Winston leans over the table, provoking the Empress Dowager's outburst.
Declaring her need to rest, the Empress Dowager stormily exits as the Emperor calls after her.
A quick, soft slide sounds as Winston takes Letitia's hand and announces their departure as well.
Rubbing his forehead in exhaustion, the Emperor grants them leave and tells them to go safely. A speech bubble appears against a plain white background, signaling the Emperor's desire for one last word.
A quick, light creak sounds as Letitia steps through the door, leaving the two men alone.
A sudden quick tap sounds as Winston stands before the Emperor to hear his final request.
The Emperor looks on with a heavy, pained expression, his silence conveying deep regret and uncertainty. Winston looks down with a solemn face as he offers a sincere apology to the Emperor. The Emperor laments his mother's behavior and his own lack of power to change the situation. A rhythmic step sounds as Winston begins to walk away, dismissing the need for further worry. The Emperor bids him a hopeful farewell, but Winston notes that such meetings will never recur. Walking away with a firm stride, Winston declares that he will never return to the capital. A sudden, quick click sounds as the door shuts, leaving the Emperor in a state of melancholy. A rhythmic step sounds as Winston hurries down a hallway, his mind focused on finding Letitia.
Winston reflects on the wasted time and his urgent need to return to Letitia's side immediately. A shout bubble conveys a man's frantic rage as he questions the sanity of ending the engagement.
A quick, firm grip sounds as a man's hand roughly seizes Letitia's arm, causing her pain.
Young Master Esta demands to know if the news is a lie, but Letitia confirms its truth.
He rages about business responsibilities while Letitia struggles with a ringing head and intense physical pressure. A rhythmic step sounds as a man's feet appear on the stairs, approaching the struggling pair.
Winston looks on with a chillingly cold gaze while demanding that Letitia be released at once. A rhythmic step sounds as a man's shoes click against the stone steps of the grand staircase. Winston looks on with a stern and commanding expression while reiterating his demand for Letitia's release.
Young Master Esta looks back in terrified shock as he recognizes the man confronting him.
A quick, firm grip sounds as Winston reaches out and forcefully seizes the young master's wrist.
Winston looms over the man, coldly asking if his previous command to let go was unheard. A sudden, quick snap sounds as the pressure on his wrist causes the young master to scream. Young Master Esta argues that this is a private family matter and tells Winston not to interfere. Winston retorts that someone like him understands the family situation much better than the young master. He questions the young master's knowledge of the cheating fiancé, leaving him stunned and confused by the claim. Young Master Esta turns back to Letitia, shouting that she had never mentioned anything about the infidelity. Letitia reflects on his constant refusal to listen while stating the business remains unaffected by the split. A quick, firm grip sounds as the man seizes Letitia's arm again, prioritizing his own concerns. A sudden, quick pull sounds as he jerks Letitia toward him, causing her vision to blur dangerously. Letitia looks pale and dazed, her eyes clouding over as she begins to lose her physical strength.
Winston's face is filled with dark fury as he watches the man continue to assault Letitia.
A shout bubble signals Winston's panic as Letitia falls, her consciousness failing as she collapses. A sudden, quick thud sounds as Winston catches Letitia in his arms just before she falls.
A speech bubble records Letitia's final pained groan as she loses consciousness in Winston's protective hold.
In a dark haze, Letitia wonders what is happening while Winston frantically asks if she is all right.
Letitia's perspective is blurred as she weakly wonders if the lights have failed before she blacks out. Letitia realizes the lights haven't gone out and asks why she cannot see anything.
Panic surges through Letitia as she realizes she is trapped in a sudden and total darkness. A rhythmic step sounds as young Master Esther rushes up the stairs to confront the pair. The brown-haired man questions if Letitia fell over from just a small tug on her arm. A sudden, quick slap sounds as Letitia strikes her brother's hand away, shouting for him to stop. Young Master Esther asks if she just hit him as Winston stands protectively behind the girl. A quick, firm grip sounds as Letitia clutches the railing, asking about a spice called tetrad. The man confirms the spice's lethal nature and asks why she is mentioning it now. Letitia reveals Patrick's plot to poison her, causing her brother to shout in a frantic rage.
With a chilling smile, Letitia mocks her brother's sudden anger after his past neglect of her.
Winston intervenes to stop the shouting, suggesting they leave the sibling argument behind for now.
Letitia asks if Winston is all right after he shielded her during their fall down the stairs.
A quick, pained gasp sounds as Letitia realizes her world is still filled with total darkness. A sudden, quick lift sounds as Winston pulls Letitia close and sweeps her into his arms. A rhythmic step sounds as Winston insists on carrying Letitia since she cannot walk alone now. Winston gently informs Letitia that she has lost her sight, confirming her terrifying new reality.
Exiting the mansion, Winston is met by his men who call out to him in alarm.
Pell notices Winston's tattered clothing and asks if a struggle occurred inside the banquet hall. Winston ignores the concern for his bleeding arm, ordering an immediate return to their townhouse. Pell asks if Letitia is joining them as Winston commands that the horses be prepared immediately. A sudden, quick stop sounds as Winston pauses mid-stride to change his plans for the journey. Winston asks Mark if the carriage can navigate the long route away from the forest path. Mark confirms the carriage's capability as the group prepares to depart from the estate grounds.
Pell expresses doubt about his mission, wondering if he can even gain entry to the mansion.
A sudden, quick toss sounds as Winston throws a letter toward the surprised chibi-style Pell. Winston explains that the sender of the book requested Pell's presence to meet with the doctor. Pell agrees to the task while smirking, but demands a full explanation of events later on. Winston carries Letitia toward the carriage as Mark announces that everything is ready for departure. A rhythmic thud sounds as the carriage travels through the foggy landscape in the dark night. Inside the dim carriage, Winston holds a feverish and distressed Letitia close to his chest. A sudden, quick pop sounds as Winston opens a medicine bottle, asking if she brought painkillers. Letitia blinks in a daze, her face flushed red as she looks up at her savior. Winston holds the medicine bottle and asks Letitia if she is able to take the pills. Letitia weakly stammers a denial while staring into Winston's glowing and intense blue eyes. A quick, soft slide sounds as Winston pours the medicine into his hand to assist her. A quick, light tap sounds as Winston moves his hand to Letitia's face to give her medication. Letitia looks on with wide eyes as Winston's fingers rest gently against her soft, pale lips. Winston tells Letitia to wait as he leans in close, his gaze focused intently on her. Letitia closes her eyes as Winston whispers a soft apology before moving closer to her face. Winston repeats his command to wait while holding Letitia's chin firmly with his gloved hand. A sudden, quick press sounds as Winston feeds the medicine to Letitia with a tender kiss. A moment of intense silence follows as they remain close, the medicine having been successfully given. Winston asks Letitia if she recognizes him, prompting her to address him formally as the Duke. A speech bubble conveys Winston's soft correction that she should not address him by his title. Letitia reaches out to Winston as he leans his forehead against hers in the quiet carriage. The scene shifts to a large, ornate mansion gate standing under the light of the stars. In a lavishly decorated room, a doctor examines Letitia while Winston watches from a nearby chair. A sudden, quick clink sounds as Winston asks about Letitia's health, startling the nervous doctor. The blonde doctor adjusts his monocle, his sweating face reflecting a sense of profound, worried confusion. A text box narrates the arrival of a mysterious package from an unknown sender days prior. The blonde doctor explains that Winston's provided medical book contains a crucial clue for treatment. Stunned, the doctor realizes that the sender of the mysterious medical text was the Duke. The doctor reports Letitia has only a minor scrape, prompting Winston to question her fainting. Wiping sweat from his brow, the doctor attributes her collapse to her underlying chronic illness. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the doctor reaches into his coat to retrieve a document. Holding a letter, the doctor asks if the Duke was the one who sent the research. Winston confirms his actions while the doctor admits he previously couldn't grasp the illness's cause. A speech bubble conveys the doctor's deep regret over his past inability to help the lady. A sudden, quick creak sounds as Winston leans back, questioning the doctor's long tenure with the family. After confirming his 20-year service, the doctor is asked about Letitia's childhood carriage accident. The doctor recalls using magical stones to treat her head injury following that old accident. A sudden, quick spark sounds as Winston explains how those stones caused a permanent blockage.
A narrative box reveals Winston uncovered this truth while researching her past before his return.
The doctor is shocked, realizing Winston's insight will allow them to find a cure much faster. A sudden, quick slide sounds as Winston stands, focusing on saving Letitia above all else. Winston firmly reminds the doctor of his responsibility to fix the damage caused by past treatments. A sudden, quick thud sounds as Winston grips the chair, granting exactly 1 year for results. Winston looms over the doctor, commandingly insisting that a treatment be found within that time frame. The scene shifts to Letitia lying peacefully in a grand, sun-drenched bed within a lavish room. Letitia's eyes flutter open as she wakes, her pink hair spread across the white pillows. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia sits up, worrying about her brother's potential reaction. Panicking in a chibi style, Letitia fears the disaster that would ensue if the Duke knew. Letitia touches her cheek in realization, recalling her interactions with the silver-haired man. A thought bubble reflects her memory of being told she had lost her sight. A sudden, quick thud sounds as Letitia notices a small, golden notebook sitting on the bed. Outside the door, Mark and Pell argue over whether they should check on the sleeping girl. A sudden, quick click sounds as Mark bursts in, stammering a flustered greeting to Letitia.
Mark recognizes Letitia, recalling their previous meeting in the forest just the day before.
A sudden, quick wave sounds as Mark enthusiastically explains they are at the Duke's townhouse. A sudden, quick slide sounds as Letitia holds the Lord's personal notebook, surprising the guards. Mark asks why she has the book, but Letitia explains she found it under the bed. A speech bubble records Letitia's casual dismissal as she promises to return the book personally.
Letitia offers a bright, determined smile as she clutches the small notebook to her chest.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia grips the precious item tightly with both hands. Mark suggests they head to the training grounds to find the silver-haired man. Letitia follows the 2 guards down the hallway, her long dress trailing on the floor. Letitia stands elegantly in the courtyard archway as Mark leads her toward his lodge. A speech bubble records Winston's immediate concern for Letitia's health as he spots her. Approaching him, Letitia expresses her deep gratitude for the Duke's help and protection. A sudden, quick pause sounds as Letitia stops, noticing the heavy bandages on Winston's arm. Letitia fretfully asks about his injury, feeling guilty for the pain he suffered for her. Winston reassures her that he is fine, but his guard watches with a skeptical expression. The brown-haired man notes that Winston is lying and won't be able to return easily. Winston looks down at Letitia with a soft, calm gaze as she continues to worry. A speech bubble records Winston's request for her to sit, noticing her distracted state. Winston suddenly changes his tune, dramatically claiming the pain is enough to make him die. Letitia is left speechless and wide-eyed by his sudden admission of intense suffering. A sudden, quick reach sounds as Letitia impulsively extends her hand toward Winston's chest. Letitia grabs the front of his shirt, her face full of earnest and frantic concern. Blushing, Letitia clarifies she only wants to help because he was injured for her sake. The scene shifts back to the Grand Palace, marked by ornate wall paneling. Letitia looks at Winston and asks if he was already aware of her blindness. A close-up reveals the depth of Letitia's pink eyes as she waits for an answer.
Winston gazes into Letitia's eyes as they stand close together in the dim room.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Winston explains he saw a familiar expression in her. A sudden, quick slide sounds as Winston suggests they are in a similar situation. Letitia looks up at him with a soft, stunned expression amidst a background of sparkles. A sudden, quick twitch sounds as Winston offers her a gentle, knowing smile. A sudden, quick reach sounds as Letitia suggests that he should make use of her. Letitia is confused by the idea as Winston adjusts his bandages, claiming his capability.
Sparkles surround Letitia as she stares at Winston, seemingly mesmerized by his presence. Winston stands tall and glowing, his silver hair shimmering as he looks over his shoulder.
In a chibi style, Letitia blushes furiously, her face turning bright red from the interaction.
Turning away, Letitia stammers that she never intended for things to progress this far. A sudden, quick slide sounds as Letitia moves toward the large, ornate doors to leave. A sudden, quick click sounds as Letitia pauses, asking Winston to consider her proposal. Winston watches Letitia walk away, framed by a soft foreground of blooming blue flowers. A sudden, quick click sounds as Winston notes that the north is a pleasant home.
Several days pass at the sprawling white estate as the sun shines through the trees.
Letitia lies face down on a large bed in her sunlit, lavishly decorated bedroom.
A thought bubble reveals Letitia's internal debate regarding the possibility of a marriage contract. Letitia recalls a past painful memory involving a dark-haired man and her previous marriage. A narrative box reflects her hesitation, contrasting her past with the Grand Duke's offer. A sudden, quick mumble sounds as Letitia considers that the arrangement might be acceptable. A sudden, quick thud sounds as a purple-haired maid bursts in, shouting about a disaster.
A sudden, quick step sounds as Letitia asks Alan what has caused such a panic.
Alan shouts in a frantic chibi style that the Grand Duke has arrived at the mansion. Letitia is startled as Alan frantically insists she get up and dress properly immediately. A sudden, quick clatter sounds as Letitia dismisses the need for elaborate ribbons and accessories. Alan looks flustered while holding a ribbon, unsure of what to do for her lady. A sudden, quick slide sounds as Letitia decides to go out just as she is. A rhythmic step sounds as Letitia walks through the mansion hallway with quiet determination. A sudden, quick creak sounds as Winston greets Letitia, noting the time since their meeting.
Winston stands tall in formal attire, offering a simple and calm affirmation to her.
Letitia looks down at the ribbon in her hand, her expression one of quiet contemplation.
In a chibi style, Letitia asks why he is here while Winston stands pleasantly behind her. Winston apologizes for the unannounced visit, expressing his desire to hear her final answer. Winston directly asks Letitia if she has given thought to the proposed contractual marriage. Letitia confirms that she has considered the offer, but admits she has a major concern. A speech bubble conveys Letitia's somber revelation that she is terminally ill and dying.
Letitia's hands tremble slightly as she tightly grips the fabric of her light blue dress.
Winston remains composed, simply prompting her to continue her line of thought. Winston asks if she would accept staying with him for even a short period of time. Winston sits across from her, his formal suit perfectly pressed and his demeanor calm.
Letitia agrees to the terms and prepares to state her own conditions for the union.
A speech bubble records Letitia's request to draw up a formal legal marriage contract.
Letitia stares forward with a look of intense, firm determination in her pink eyes.
A sudden, quick thud sounds as Letitia places a hand on the table to emphasize her point. Letitia specifies that the contract must include a clause for automatic dissolution after 1 year. Winston smiles thoughtfully, acknowledging her condition with a quiet hum of agreement. A sudden, quick scratch sounds as Winston decides to follow her lead while writing.
Sitting on the couch, Letitia begins to ask how they will handle her condition.
Winston remains steadfast, stating firmly that he will not disclose her secrets to anyone. Letitia asks if there is truly nothing the Grand Duke wishes to receive in return. Winston pauses at her question, repeating her inquiry about what he might actually want. A sudden, quick smirk sounds as Winston offers a mysterious and knowing look toward her. Winston makes a single request, insisting that Letitia stop addressing him by formal titles. Winston waits with a pleasant expression, his silver hair catching the soft light of the room. In a chibi style, Winston threatens to withhold his signature unless she calls him by name. Blushing deeply, Letitia struggles to utter his name as she prepares to seal their agreement. Winston continues to watch her with an amused and patient smile, awaiting her final response. A sudden, quick scratch sounds as the pen moves across the paper, finalizing their contract. Winston stands tall and satisfied, his formal attire accentuating his noble and commanding presence. Outside, Winston questions if her single small suitcase contains everything she intended to pack. Letitia offers a bright smile, insisting that she has brought every item she truly needs.
A thought bubble reveals her somber realization that her possessions were always incredibly limited.
Recalling her brother's cruelty, Letitia remembers being told that nothing in the mansion was hers. In a chibi style, Letitia frantically offers to carry the heavy luggage herself to be helpful. Winston tells Letitia to look behind her, prompting her to turn around in confusion. Alan stands nearby, her face flushed red as she begins to weep over the departure.
A sudden, quick sniff sounds as Alan cries about the sudden news of Letitia's leaving.
Letitia reaches out with a gentle and comforting touch, stroking the crying maid's purple hair.
A speech bubble records Philip's greeting as Letitia spots him waiting near the carriage. The blonde-haired doctor stands ready, struggling to hold a heavy stack of 3 large trunks. Winston calmly explains that the physician will also be joining them on their long journey. Letitia is visibly shocked to learn that Philip will be leaving the estate with her. Winston reassures her that it is only natural for her personal physician to accompany her. Letitia asks if her father has been informed of the doctor's sudden departure from the family. Winston nonchalantly claims he will simply tell the Duke that Philip is part of her dowry. Letitia remains silent, her face full of complex emotions as she contemplates her final exit. A sudden, quick thud sounds as Letitia stops, whispering the name Colleen while hesitating to move.
Letitia questions the absence of a carriage as they approach a strange, glowing golden light.
Winston tells her there is no need for worry as the air fills with sparkles. A sudden, quick slide sounds as Winston reveals a magical transport scroll from the Emperor. Letitia is stunned, wondering why the Emperor would give such a rare gift to the Duke. Mark shouts a cheerful farewell, promising to join them shortly while the horse waits patiently. A sudden, quick nod sounds as Winston acknowledges his guard before turning back to Letitia. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia takes a final breath, her pink hair swaying. Letitia looks back at the grand doors of the mansion she is leaving forever behind. A narrative box conveys her deep feeling of being a stranger in her own childhood home. A sudden, quick flash sounds as a massive golden portal opens before the 2 travelers. Winston extends his arm toward her, gently asking Letitia to take his hand for the jump. Blushing, Letitia agrees and reaches out to grasp the silver-haired man's steady and warm hand. Letitia smiles with newfound hope as she holds on to Winston, prepared to leave her past. Letitia repeats his words in a daze, her eyes widening at the mention of home. Winston smiles warmly, welcoming her to their new home as the portal's light surrounds them.
Sparkles fill the air as Letitia looks up at him, her expression one of pure joy.
Together, the pair walks into the swirling golden portal, vanishing from the mansion grounds forever. High above, a dark silhouette watches the departure from a window within the silent stone walls. Kalyan stares down with a cold and piercing gaze, watching his sister leave the family estate. The dark-haired man, Kalyan, gazes out the window while questioning if the rumors of his sister's broken engagement are true. Kalyan scoffs at the idea of the Grand Duke accepting someone like her as Letitia recalls her bitter departure.
A tense silence fills the room as Kalyan watches the horizon with a sharp and focused gaze.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalyan draws the curtain shut, claiming he feels nothing but relief now that she is gone. Turning away from the light, Kalyan repeats to himself that he is truly relieved by her absence. At a distant, shimmering palace, the dark-haired king is confronted by his mother, who questions his recent decisions. Clothed in black lace, the dark-haired woman shouts at the king for gifting a rare transport scroll to his brother. A sudden, quick thud sounds as the woman slams the scroll onto a desk, demanding that his brother receive nothing more. The king defends his simple gift, while his mother warns that such yielding will only lead to a challenge for the throne. A sudden, quick shout sounds as the mother berates the king for being naive in his desire to congratulate his brother's marriage. A narrative box reveals that society is currently obsessed with his brother, praising him endlessly after every public appearance. The king remains indifferent to the news, further infuriating his mother, who reminds him of her efforts to ruin his rival's reputation. A sudden quick click sounds as the woman clenches her fist, insisting they must act before his brother's influence grows too large. A cold and calculating light flickers within the woman's purple eyes as she contemplates her next move. Turning the conversation, the woman asks the king how many wells exist in the empire, leaving him utterly baffled. A sinister smile spreads across the dark-haired woman's face as she begins to weave a new plot. A narrative box notes that nothing spreads through a population as effectively or as destructively as fear. Surrounded by dark roses and thorns, the woman relishes the thought of the chaos she is about to unleash. The king is still stunned by the sudden change in topic, questioning why she would ask about the country's wells. The woman explains that there is no tool more powerful for manipulation than the fear found in negative public opinion. A thought bubble mentions rumors of poisonous spices reaching a noble family, framed against a swirling, toxic green background. Deciding to handle the matter herself, the woman dismisses her son's concerns with a chillingly pleasant expression. The woman tells the king not to worry, her voice dripping with a hidden and dangerous intent. Looming over him, the woman grasps the king's face as a dark aura of roses and thorns surrounds them both. A sudden quick click sounds as she tilts his chin upward, asserting her dominance over his will. A sudden quick click sounds as the king's hand trembles at his side, trapped under his mother's suffocating influence. A dark aura swallows the scene as the king finally submits, whispering that he understands her commands.
Far away in the snowy north, Winston gently places a thick black cloak over Letitia's shoulders to shield her from the cold.
Letitia smiles brightly at Winston, her pink hair standing out against the white landscape as she enjoys the view. Winston expresses his relief, admitting he was worried she might find the winter landscape too bleak and run away. Winston watches her with a warm and satisfied smile, his silver hair catching the falling snow.
Letitia assures him she is happy, noting that she has never seen so much snow in her entire life.
A sudden, quick crunch sounds as Letitia steps out into the deep snow, leaving her footprints behind. Winston stands still for a moment, silently watching her walk ahead with a look of quiet admiration. A brown-haired maid stands by the castle gates, her face frozen in shock as she spots the approaching pair. A loud shout rings through the air, announcing to the entire estate that the Grand Duke has finally returned home. Winston carries Letitia bridal style across the stone bridge, startling the servants who have gathered to greet them. The castle guards and staff look on in utter disbelief at the intimate and unexpected display from their master. Blushing furiously, Letitia begs Winston to put her down, embarrassed that everyone in the castle is staring at them. Winston ignores her pleas, holding her firmly against his chest as they continue toward the main entrance.
Winston warns that she would get frostbite if she walked on foot and reminds her to use his name instead of his title.
A sudden, quick wiggle sounds as Letitia's bare feet kick slightly in the air while Winston carries her. In a chibi style, Letitia continues to protest while Winston remains stubborn and focused on her safety.
Letitia worries aloud that people will think she is a fool who is incapable of walking on her own.
Leaning in close, Winston whispers that people will simply see her as a wife who is deeply and truly loved.
Letitia is left stunned and breathless by his words, her face turning a bright shade of red.
A rhythmic step sounds as Winston ignores the gossip and carries her deeper into his snowy domain. Letitia asks why they didn't simply use a transport scroll to appear inside the safety of the castle walls. Winston explains that magic is strictly restricted within the perimeter of the castle, leaving Letitia curious. Winston looks up toward a massive ivy-covered clock tower, explaining that it is the source of the magical restriction. Winston continues to carry Letitia toward the castle through the snowy grounds. Letitia inquires about the tower, and Winston explains its origins lie with the ancient mages of Shutin. Legend says the mages lost control, causing their immense power to be absorbed by the tower. The kingdom of Shutin vanished into history, leaving only the mysterious tower standing behind. Letitia realizes the tower's magic distorts the environment, explaining why transport scrolls fail to work nearby. Winston is impressed by her knowledge, while Letitia modestly attributes her understanding to her love of reading. As they pass the tower, Winston asks if she enjoys books, and Letitia admits her passion. Letitia playfully asks if he intends to buy her books to fill her time.
Winston stuns her by revealing his plan to build an entire library just for her.
Overwhelmed by his generosity, Letitia lets out a shocked exclamation as they approach the castle. A sudden, quick creak sounds as the clock tower's gears turn, emitting a strange blue glow. The massive and ornate castle stands proudly against the clear blue winter sky. Now, inside her new quarters, Letitia stands in a lavishly decorated room accompanied by a maid. Letitia is struck by the elegance of her room, feeling it is almost too grand for her.
Noticing a handrail along the wall, Letitia realizes she can navigate the room safely if she goes blind.
Mia, the brown-haired maid, reacts with visible shock and confusion at Letitia's strange behavior. The maid looks away with a troubled expression, clearly unsure of how to interact with her mistress. Letitia assumes the staff dislikes her but remains unfazed, having grown accustomed to such cold atmospheres.
Desiring privacy, Letitia politely dismisses the maid, insisting she does not require any further assistance.
Mia, the brown-haired maid, looks deeply stressed as she contemplates the rejection. The maid turns and leaves the room, her posture reflecting her inner turmoil. A sudden quick click sounds as the heavy bedroom door closes, leaving Letitia alone. Exhausted from the journey, Letitia lets out a long and weary sigh in the silence. Letitia's eyes widen in surprise as she discovers the entrance to a luxurious bathroom. The pink-haired woman stands in the center of her grand room, processing her new surroundings. A hazy, warm light fills the dressing area, highlighting the intricate furniture. Letitia relaxes in a warm, bubbly bath, a small and peaceful smile gracing her lips. While soaking, she begins to ponder the layout of her new suite. Letitia wonders if the locked door she encountered earlier simply leads to a storage room. Deciding not to worry, she closes her eyes and dismisses the door as unimportant. From the other side of the wall, Winston's deep voice announces his intention to handle matters personally.
Startled from her doze, Letitia hears Winston dismissing a guard and panics in confusion.
Letitia realizes the locked door connects directly to Winston's room and fears he might enter the bathroom. A servant asks Winston if he wants to bathe, offering to prepare the water immediately. A sudden quick splash sounds as Letitia frantically tries to exit the tub before anyone enters. Winston tells the servant he will take care of the rest himself, heightening Letitia's alarm. A sudden quick tap sounds as Mia knocks on the door, still looking quite nervous.
A sudden quick tap sounds as the gray-haired butler stops Mia, questioning her presence in the hallway.
The butler demands to know why Mia is not with the madam inside the room.
Mia gasps, nearly dropping her teapot as she faces the butler's stern interrogation.
The butler asks if the tea was for the madam and wonders if she made a mistake.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Mia pulls a small notebook from her pocket to communicate.
A sudden, quick scrawl sounds as Mia writes about her fear of upsetting the new mistress. Mia shows the butler her notes, expressing her worry that the mistress finds the estate lacking. Masha, a blonde maid, suddenly appears and asks the butler if he is causing trouble again. The two senior servants bicker, with the butler reminding Masha of their long history of arguing. Masha asks Mia why the butler followed her here, and the butler scoffs in annoyance. The butler clarifies that his loyalty is to his master, and he will serve him forever. Masha scoffs at his declaration, though the two clearly share a deep, long-standing bond. A narrative box reveals that the two senior servants haven't changed their bickering ways over the years. The blonde nanny insists that as His Highness's caretaker, she will only ever follow him. Writing in her notebook, Chibi Mia worries that the mistress seems uncomfortable in her presence. The masked nanny reacts with visible shock as she reads Mia's latest notes. A soft whisper of Letitia's name drifts through the air against a floral blue background. Standing by the door, the scarred aide asks Kalian if something is bothering him.
A loud, sharp bang sounds as the heavy door is suddenly slammed shut.
Kalian dismisses his servant, though the aide suspects that something is deeply troubling his master. Startled by Kalian's sudden huff of annoyance, the scarred aide quickly agrees to leave. A sudden, rhythmic step sounds as a frustrated Kalian walks away with his fist clenched. Kalian turns around in surprise, admitting he didn't realize anyone else was already in the room. Peeking over the edge of the tub, Letitia apologizes and wonders how Kalian entered her bathroom.
Holding a towel, Kallian explains that the master and mistress's rooms are connected through the bathroom. A narrative bubble notes that the bathwater has already begun to turn cold.
Kallian stands before the tub, waiting for a flustered Letitia to reach for the towel. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kallian closes his eyes, looking deeply embarrassed by the situation. Kallian urges Letitia to put on a robe as she reaches out from the water. Blushing furiously in the tub, Letitia holds the garment against her chest in surprise. Kallian explains that he needs her to turn around so he can also put on his robe. Letitia lets out a small sound of realization as she prepares to comply.
A sudden, quick creak sounds as Kallian turns his back to the flustered mistress.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia puts on her gown behind him.
Robed and standing, Letitia looks toward Kallian with a quiet and uncertain expression.
Kallian awkwardly bids her to enjoy her bath before heading toward the exit.
A sudden, quick click sounds as the door shuts, leaving the room silent once more.
Leaning against the wall, a blushing Kallian insists to himself that he is not a beast. Sitting on her bed, Letitia wonders if Kallian's hand injury is still causing him pain. In a chibi style, Letitia tilts her head in confusion as someone approaches. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia looks up at the returning Kallian. Kallian observes that Letitia looks clean and refreshed after her warm bath.
Kallian asks if the room is to her liking or if she finds it uncomfortable.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Letitia assures him that the grand suite is very nice.
Letitia looks relieved and happy as Kallian explains he will use the other room.
Kallian asks why she is covering herself, noting that she looked nice as she was. Letitia warns Kallian that he might catch a cold if he doesn't dry his wet hair. Letitia looks at him earnestly, hoping he will take her advice for his health. Kallian is surprised as he asks if she is offering to help him dry his hair.
In chibi form, a startled Letitia realizes she has volunteered herself for the task.
Letitia sits behind Kallian on a purple sofa, gently drying his silver hair with a towel.
A sudden rhythmic rustle sounds as Letitia asks Kallian if she may request another favor. Letitia shocks Kallian by revealing her desire to learn how to read Braille.
Letitia explains that her eyesight suddenly failed at the banquet and will only get worse.
Letitia believes that learning Braille now is the only way to prepare for her future blindness.
A sudden rhythmic step sounds as the scene shifts to the scarred aide walking down a hall.
The aide asks Kallian if he should find resources or a teacher for Letitia's Braille lessons.
The aide suggests hiring a local librarian who is known to be an expert in Braille.
Kallian asks if the librarian is a man, and the aide confirms it while noting his age.
Kallian rejects the suggestion, claiming he has already found a suitable teacher for the mistress. The brown-haired aide is left utterly baffled by his master's mysterious and sudden decision.
Kallian stands resolute, his silver hair catching the light as he considers his next move.
A dark-haired man and a brown-haired girl stand back-to-back, ready for battle with their weapons drawn.
The grand castle with its dark blue rooftops stands amidst a snowy forest.
The brown-haired aide leads Letitia down a lavishly decorated hallway inside the castle.
The aide inquires about her comfort, and Letitia assures him her accommodations are fine. The brown-haired aide explains that the Lord wants her brought to the study immediately. Surprised by the speed of the arrangements, Letitia asks about her new Braille teacher. The aide admits he has met the teacher, and Letitia expresses hope for kindness. The aide assures Letitia the teacher will not be strict with her specifically. A sudden quick rustle sounds as Letitia nervously prepares to enter the large study. A sudden quick creak sounds as Letitia slowly pushes open the heavy wooden door.
A sudden quick gasp sounds as a voice asks Letitia why she is nervous.
Letitia freezes at the entrance, her expression one of utter shock and surprise.
Standing by a bookshelf, the silver-haired Kallian holds a book and observes Letitia's reaction.
A sudden quick hiccup sounds as a flustered Letitia is offered water by Kallian.
A sudden quick gulp sounds as Letitia drinks from the glass provided by Kallian.
A sudden quick huff sounds as Letitia wonders why the teacher has not arrived.
Letitia looks around the expansive library, searching for any sign of another person.
Letitia's eyes widen as she realizes that no one else is currently in the room.
Kallian and Letitia share a silent, intense look as the tension in the room grows.
In chibi form, Letitia realizes with dread that Kallian intends to be her teacher.
Kallian confirms he is the teacher, causing Letitia to react with a shocked exclamation.
Letitia tries to decline his help, but Kallian insists no one else knows the subject.
Letitia is horrified by the extremely slow pace of learning just one word daily.
A pink speech bubble suggests that a year is far too long for her lessons.
Kallian rejects her suggestion for more words, claiming his schedule is already too full.
Swirling blue energy fills the screen, reflecting a sense of deceit and hidden intentions.
Bold blue text declares that his excuse is nothing more than a complete lie.
Chibi Kallian dismisses her concerns with a wave while Letitia watches him with skepticism.
Letitia requests to simply borrow the book so she can study by herself.
Kallian refuses her request, claiming the book is far too precious to be lent out.
Letitia points out his contradiction, and Kallian smugly notes that minds are subject to change.
A sudden, quick sigh sounds as a resigned chibi Letitia finally agrees to his terms.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia slides a small object across the table's surface. The ornate green brooch sits on the table, surrounded by a faint floral border.
Callian questions why Letitia is handing him a brooch belonging to his rival, Patrick. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia explains the brooch contains useful recorded information. A blue narrative bubble reveals that Patrick has an older brother named Peter. Letitia details the internal family rivalry and how Peter is protecting his own reputation.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Callian gestures for Letitia to continue her explanation.
Letitia notes that Peter is currently managing all the business affairs for his family.
A white speech bubble reveals Peter has acquired many trading companies near the north.
Letitia explains that exposing Patrick's flaws using the brooch would give the North an advantage.
Callian asks how she managed to obtain such specific knowledge about their business dealings.
Letitia admits she saw the information in documents while visiting the ducal residence.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Callian expresses shock at her perfectly accurate memory.
Letitia stands modestly against a background of blooming pink flowers and warm light.
A blue narrative bubble expresses Callian's surprise at Letitia's sudden interest in business matters.
The two stand close together, bathed in the soft glow of the library's lighting.
Chibi Letitia panics, waving her hands while claiming she lacks experience in social life.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Callian picks up the brooch, startling the mistress.
Callian praises Letitia for uncovering a strategy that he had not even considered himself.
Callian admits he is unfamiliar with deals and asks if Northerners haggle well.
In chibi form, Letitia says no, and Callian finds her honesty amusingly refreshing.
Callian smiles confidently while holding the ornate green brooch up to the light.
Letitia worries she will fail and cause Callian to suffer a business loss.
Callian reassures Letitia that no one in his home will object to her actions.
Letitia feels confident she can manage the task as long as she is assisting Callian.
Callian agrees to her terms and suggests they continue their conversation at a later time.
Callian stands behind Letitia at the study desk, guiding her hands over the braille book. Callian tells Letitia to focus on her fingertips, and she insists she is concentrating hard.
A close-up shows Letitia's slender hand resting delicately on the textured braille pages.
Letitia's pink eyes are wide and full of focus as she studies the raised dots.
Sunset light fills the castle windows as a sudden rhythmic step sounds through the hall.
Walking down the hallway, Letitia thinks Callian does not need to escort her home.
Letitia glances back over her shoulder with a quiet and thoughtful expression on her face. An ivy-covered clock tower stands tall against the vibrant orange glow of the sunset sky.
Letitia wonders to herself if the clock tower was always set to that specific time.
Letitia clearly remembers the clock being broken and the hands not moving at all before.
Rhythmic ticking sounds as Letitia looks back toward the clock tower through the window.
A close-up of the massive clock face shows its hands pointing toward 1 o'clock. A sudden, quick click sounds against a dark background filled with small, glowing blue stars. The grand white castle towers stand tall under a clear, bright blue afternoon sky. Surrounded by a pink frame, Letitia looks slightly troubled with her arms crossed. A woven basket filled with blue flowers and a folded blanket sits on the carpet.
Letitia notes 4 days have passed and wonders if Sir Davis left the secret basket.
Letitia knocks on the door and announces she has come to dry Callian's hair.
Letitia enters as Callian orders his aide to reorganize the border patrol and weapon deployments.
The scarred aide agrees to the orders as Callian dismisses him from the room.
The brown-haired aide bows deeply to Letitia, leaving the pink-haired mistress looking quite surprised.
Letitia calls out to Sir Davis, stopping him as he prepares to leave the suite.
Letitia asks if he left the basket at her door, but the aide denies it. Sir Davis asks for details about the basket and offers to find who left it.
Letitia describes the flowers and snacks as Chibi Callian suddenly grips her arm.
Letitia looks down in surprise as the chibi Callian interrupts her conversation with the aide. Callian asks Letitia to pay more attention to him instead of focusing on his subordinate.
Callian complains that his hair is still wet and he is cold because she's late.
The aide is shocked, remembering Callian used to fight in freezing water during the winter.
Chibi Callian snaps at the scarred aide, demanding to know why he is still present. Callian orders the aide to leave immediately and get started on his border patrol tasks.
Callian shouts a final, angry command for the brown-haired aide to get out.
The scarred aide quickly flees the room, looking nervous and sweating from the confrontation. A sudden, sharp bang sounds as the door slams, leaving the aide feeling very unwanted. The aide stops in the hall, looking thoughtful as he considers his master's strange behavior. Peeking around a corner, the aide spots the senior servants bickering in the hallway. The male servant and masked nanny argue over whether yellow or blue suits the mistress.
Mia tells the bickering pair to stop before the mistress discovers their secret gift-giving.
Sir Davis realizes that all 3 servants have been leaving the baskets for Lady Letitia.
The scene shifts to the quiet interior of the suite with its grand teal furniture.
Callian stands with his arms crossed, asking Letitia what she is doing with the laundry. Letitia struggles under a massive white blanket, explaining she wants to keep Callian warm.
Callian smiles softly at her, noting that Letitia is truly a very unpredictable person.
Helping Letitia with a heavy blanket, Kalian tells her she should call a servant instead of struggling alone.
Letitia admits she is not used to giving orders, but Kalian encourages her to get comfortable with relying on staff.
Letitia looks off to the side with a soft, thoughtful expression, her pink hair glowing in the warm light.
Letitia asks Kalian when his arm will be fully healed, and he playfully wonders if she has grown tired of him.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia reaches out to touch Kalian's sleeve, her eyes wide with concern for his injury.
Letitia stares at Kalian in surprise, her face flushing slightly as she stands amidst a backdrop of wintry, sparkling patterns. The next day, a scarred aide approaches Kalian in the study to inquire if his wounded arm is almost healed. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian pulls his shirt open to reveal bandages, firmly denying that he has recovered yet. The aide looks nervous and begins to sweat, remembering he saw Kalian training without bandages earlier that morning.
A blue speech bubble appears as Kalian asks his aide if they have received any word from someone named Pell.
The scarred aide reports that there has been no contact since the person in question passed the border region.
A narrative bubble reveals Kalian's intention to investigate personally and return before the rain starts to fall.
Kalian insists on going, but the scarred aide expresses worry about the weather and suggests he go alone instead.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Kalian places a hand on the aide's shoulder, his expression turning cold and serious.
Standing before a floral background, Kalian tells the aide, Mark, to stop looking at him with such a suspicious face.
A close-up of shoes moving through the castle accompanies Kalian's thought that he cannot let Letitia's belongings get ruined.
A sudden, quick creak sounds as Kalian pushes open a heavy door, muttering about stepping out of his comfort zone.
Letitia meets Kalian in the hallway and mentions she was just about to head to the study for their lesson.
Standing near a suit of armor, Kalian apologizes and informs Letitia that they must postpone today's Braille lesson.
Letitia notices his hair is already dry and realizes she won't be able to help him, concluding it cannot be helped.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as a smiling Letitia waves goodbye, telling Kalian to be careful on his journey.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as Kalian begins to walk away, his back turned to Letitia as she watches him leave.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian turns back and firmly grabs Letitia's arm, shouting her name in a panic.
Letitia looks over her shoulder with a confused expression, wondering why Kalian has stopped her so suddenly.
Kalian covers his face with one hand, looking flustered as he admits that he did not mean to react that way.
Swirling black textures fill the screen, reflecting a dark and heavy atmosphere or a sudden shift in mood.
Two pairs of hands reach toward a white ceramic jar, the scene appearing grainy and shrouded in dark shadows.
Kalian holds Letitia's hand and promises to return by evening to finish the lesson they had to skip. A close-up shows hands carefully lifting the white jar as the dark, swirling energy continues to surround the action. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian's hand trembles while he continues to hold Letitia's arm with intense focus. A close-up of Letitia's eye reveals her internal thought as she tells Kalian that she understands and will be waiting. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian looks deeply troubled, his voice shaky as he asks if she will truly wait.
A close-up shows their hands firmly entwined, the grip reflecting the growing tension and emotional weight between them.
Bathed in a soft glow of blooming flowers, Kalian looks at Letitia and promises to meet her right here. Letitia gazes back at him with a gentle expression, confirming with a smile that she will be waiting for his return.
Kalian stares at Letitia in silence, his blue eyes filled with a mixture of relief and lingering anxiety. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian flinches and begins to pull his hand away from Letitia's arm.
Kalian apologizes for losing control of his strength, and Letitia kindly reassures him that he did not hurt her.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia smiles and waves, telling Kalian that she will see him again later.
Kalian watches her with a faint, calm smile, his expression softening as she prepares to depart.
Letitia sits alone in a dark, modern armchair in the library, looking small and pensive in the large room.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia rubs her wrist, questioning why Kalian was acting so strange and intense.
A sudden, quick creak sounds as Letitia looks up from her chair, noting to herself that Kalian seemed incredibly anxious. Looking toward a large window, Letitia realizes she has never left the castle and wonders if she should go out.
In chibi form, Letitia is startled by a sudden, quick rustle sounding from the shadows behind a bookshelf.
Letitia spots the brown-haired maid and asks if it is her, causing Mia to flinch in total shock. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia asks the maid what she is doing in the library at this hour.
Mia holds up a feather duster and blushes, claiming she was just busy performing her dusting duties.
A cloud of thick gray dust suddenly falls over Mia, leaving her looking shocked and messy while Letitia watches. A sudden, quick creak sounds as a dejected and dusty Mia leaves the room to go wash herself.
A sudden, quick click sounds as Letitia glances over her shoulder in the library.
Letitia considers reading a book while she waits in the vast candlelit library. Letitia is impressed by the library's collection as she explores the rows of bookshelves.
Letitia is surprised to find children's books among the grand collection in the library. A sudden quick rustle sounds as Letitia flips through a book featuring pink bunny illustrations. Letitia smiles, thinking Kalian has a secret fondness for cute things like the pink bunny. A sudden quick rustle sounds as Letitia settles onto the floor to read in a corner. Letitia watches the rain through a window, deciding to read for just a short while. Outside in the heavy rain, several horses and hooded figures wait near a carriage. The scarred aide informs his lord that an issue has arisen during their rainy investigation. A hooded subordinate worries that the rest of their group has encountered serious trouble.
Mark asks if they should seek shelter as the silver-haired lord looks increasingly distressed.
A sudden quick tap sounds as Kalian insists on finding Pell before the rain worsens. Breathing heavily in the rain, Kalian curses the weather that brings back painful memories. Narrative text reveals Kalian associates rain with the tragic losses of his brother and Letitia. Mark urges Kalian to take shelter while he handles the search for Pell alone.
Kalian clenches his chest as Mark suggests staying nearby and returning to the castle tomorrow.
A dark, ominous prompt questions if waiting until tomorrow will be far too late. A sudden quick bang sounds as a hand slams down against a stark white background. Kalian suddenly bolts away, prompting Mark to shout and ask where he is going. Kalian insists on returning to the castle immediately, despite Mark's warnings about his rainy day anxiety. Kalian grips a horse's saddle, determined to personally confirm that Letitia is still at the castle. Drenched and desperate, Kalian looks back with intense blue eyes as he prepares to ride. The grand white castle stands silent under the heavy, gray downpour of a summer storm. Gorton asks Mia if she has thoroughly searched the study for the missing mistress. A blonde maid weeps, blaming herself for not staying by the lady's side. Mia suddenly remembers something important, catching the attention of the silver-haired butler. Mia reports that the mistress previously mentioned wanting to venture outside the castle walls. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Gorton looks shocked by the possibility of Letitia being alone. Rhythmic clicking sounds as a soaking wet Kalian marches through the grand doors of the castle. Kalian demands to know Letitia's whereabouts as the blonde maid bows and stammers in fear. Kalian stares in cold silence when he learns no one has seen Letitia since he left. A large red word, "Why?" screams out against a background of dark, swirling energy. Kalian looks utterly devastated and confused, reeling from the news that Letitia is missing. The haunting question of whether she lied about waiting echoes against a dark, swirling backdrop. Gorton tries to guide the trembling Kalian to change his wet clothes, mentioning the study.
A sudden quick slap sounds as Kalian shouts for the butler to let go him.
A sudden, quick crash sounds as a tall, marble-patterned vase shatters into pieces on the floor.
Kalian leans against the wall in despair, calling out Letitia's name with a broken voice.
Kalian screams her name again, his silhouette reflecting a deep, overwhelming sense of panic. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian flinches, his face pale and sweating from intense distress. Letitia stands behind the trembling Kalian, her expression filled with worry as she finds him. Breathing heavily, Kalian turns to find Letitia standing right there in front of him. Letitia asks what happened as Kalian suddenly pulls her into a tight, desperate embrace. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian buries his face in Letitia's shoulder, overcome with relief. Soft light surrounds the pair as Kalian holds Letitia tightly, unable to let her go. A close-up shows Kalian's hand gripping Letitia's back as sparkling light fills the scene. Letitia looks surprised as she realizes the depth of Kalian's fear and desperation. Standing amidst the wreckage of the vase, Kalian clings to Letitia as she notices he is trembling. Letitia notices Kalian's bleeding foot and urges him to let her treat his wound. Kalian pulls Letitia into a tight embrace, reminding her that she promised to be waiting for him.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian grips Letitia's back, confessing his panic when he could not find her.
Letitia apologizes for dozing off in the study and asks if he was truly that worried about her absence. A sudden quick rustle sounds as Letitia gently pats Kalian's back to comfort him while he continues to tremble. Letitia calls for Gorton, asking him to prepare a warm bath and fresh clothes for the drenched lord.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the blonde maid bows and promises to attend to the preparations immediately.
Letitia kindly asks the head butler and the maid to simply address her by her name from now on.
Standing among the shattered remains of the vase, the staff acknowledges the request of Lady Letitia with a bow. A sudden quick rustle sounds as Letitia smiles warmly and offers her sincere thanks to the gathered servants.
Letitia suggests heading to Kalian's room and asks if he is steady enough to walk after his ordeal.
Mia watches them leave in shock, marveling at how Letitia remained completely unfazed by their intense emotional display. Soft light glows from a candelabra in the quiet hallway as the scene shifts to the evening hours.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia tucks the exhausted Kalian into bed within his dimly lit room.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian catches Letitia's hand, asking where she intends to go so soon.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian pulls Letitia into another embrace, pleading with her not to leave him.
Letitia warns him that staying in his cold, damp state will surely cause him to catch a fever. Letitia admits her confusion over his behavior just as Kalian confesses his deep-seated terror of rainy days.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia looks at Kalian with a stunned expression, surprised by his vulnerability. Letitia's voice is soft with concern as she asks him why the rain causes him such distress.
Kalian explains that rain always signaled a tragic departure in his past, making him fear she had disappeared too.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as their hands entwine, the close contact offering a moment of quiet reassurance.
Kalian looks into Letitia's eyes and asks if she will truly choose to stay with him despite everything.
A sudden, quick tap sounds against the heavy bedroom door, signaling an arrival from the hallway outside.
A servant announces that the bath is finally ready as the pair sits together in the quiet room.
A sudden, quick click sounds as Letitia prepares to depart and attend to the night's remaining duties.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as Letitia walks alone, noting to herself that a full year has already passed.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia flinches, her hand flying to her mouth in a moment of alarm.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia stares at her blood-stained hand, noting her nosebleeds have become more frequent.
An ominous thought looms in the darkness, questioning if her health will even allow her to last another year. The master bedroom stands ornate and silent, bathed in the cool blue light of a rainy night.
A sudden, quick tap sounds at the door while Letitia sits upright in her bed, listening intently.
A sudden, quick creak sounds as Letitia calls out Kalian's name, wondering if he is the one visiting.
Kalian enters holding a pillow, bluntly stating he is staying the night because he is scared of the rain.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as Kalian marches toward the sofa, ignoring Letitia's surprise at his sudden and uninvited presence.
In chibi form, Kalian sulks on the sofa, accusing Letitia of being cold after she previously comforted him. Rhythmic clicking sounds as Letitia approaches, worried that he will be uncomfortable sleeping on the small sofa.
Letitia stares at him in silence, completely stunned by his stubbornness and refusal to return to his own room.
Letitia's request for Kalian to sit up for a moment breaks the silence of the moonlit bedroom.
A sudden, quick click sounds as Letitia opens a wooden case filled with several small medicinal glass bottles.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Letitia uses a cloth to gently clean the wound on Kalian's foot.
Letitia notes his refusal to seek a doctor, while Kalian admits she has learned his personality quite well.
Kalian affectionately calls her his wife, teasingly questioning her earlier claim that she was being cold toward him.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia offers a small, soft smile while finishing her care for his injury.
Letitia wonders to herself if he truly rushed home earlier because he feared she might have disappeared.
Letitia bluntly reminds Kalian that they are not close enough for such extreme worry, leaving him in silence.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian dismisses his earlier panic as a mere whim brought on by the rain.
Narrative text reveals Letitia's secret fear of carriages after losing someone precious in an accident during her youth.
Letitia realizes that because of her own past traumas, she can understand a small part of Kalian's fear. A sudden, quick click sounds as Letitia firmly closes the medicine chest, her work for the night done. Letitia warns Kalian not to get too used to her presence, stating that this comfort is her limit.
Kalian questions the meaning of her request for distance, while Letitia explains she wants to avoid leaving him feeling empty when she is gone.
Softly glowing purple flowers surround Letitia as she sits in a moment of quiet, melancholic reflection. Letitia mentions she will try to depart on a day without rain, though she cannot be certain. Kalian questions why she cannot simply choose to stay with him instead of leaving. Letitia looks at him sadly and reminds him that staying is simply not an option for her. Kalian argues that running away is no way to avoid the inevitability of death.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian gently lifts the sleeping Letitia into his arms.
Soft light fills the room as Kalian whispers her name while she rests peacefully.
Kalian gazes down at her with a gentle, sad smile as he carries her.
A sudden quick creak sounds as Kalian wonders if she intends to haunt his thoughts even on sunny days.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Kalian leans down close to her face in the quiet room. Surrounded by a bed of blue flowers, Kalian softly calls her cruel for her distance.
Bright morning light shines through the grand ornate windows as a new day begins.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Letitia wakes up alone in her large sunlit bed.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Letitia sits up, looking refreshed by the morning light.
The quiet morning continues as Letitia remains sitting in her bed, deep in thought.
Letitia smiles warmly, noting with relief that the rain has finally cleared up.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Letitia steps out of bed to start her day.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as Letitia walks toward the window to look outside. Letitia notices a carriage from the capital has arrived and wonders why everyone outside seems so distressed. Letitia notes that a young girl being carried from the carriage looks particularly unwell.
Letitia's eyes widen in shock as she recognizes someone among the new arrivals.
A close-up reveals a young girl with lavender hair looking pale and sickly. Realizing Alan is here, Letitia turns away from the window in a sudden panic. A sudden, quick tap sounds as Letitia reaches for the grand doors of her room.
A sudden, quick bang sounds as Letitia throws the doors open and finds Callian waiting in the hall.
Letitia asks if Alan's arrival was expected despite the morning greeting.
Callian clarifies that he had only sent for a physician to come from the capital.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as Pell arrives and announces his return to the Lord. Pell and another man approach, both looking exhausted and clutching their stomachs in pain.
Callian asks what happened to them, and Pell explains they drank bad well water on the way.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the man with Pell cringes from a sharp stomach pain. He laughs weakly while explaining that everyone got sick from the contaminated water.
Callian covers his face in frustration, asking if the soldier's condition is serious.
The man reports that most are fine despite some signs of dehydration.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as Callian orders them to rest and promises to send a doctor. The man starts to mention a rumor from the capital when a sudden gurgling sound interrupts him.
Doubled over in pain, the man struggles to finish his report about the capital.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the man apologizes and rushes away to find a restroom.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Callian scolds the young girl for sneaking into the carriage. Alan worries about Letitia's reaction while the blonde doctor tells her to handle it herself.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as Letitia approaches and asks Alan why she came all this way.
The blonde doctor explains the child snuck aboard to see Letitia and they didn't realize until much later.
Looking nervous, the young girl asks Letitia if she is angry about her presence.
Letitia sighs, telling her to recover first before eventually returning to the estate.
Letitia is shocked when Alan tearfully reveals she quit her job and has nowhere else to go.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia promises to talk more once the girl has recovered.
Letitia asks Callian for permission to let the child stay, and he immediately agrees.
The young girl agrees to go upstairs and rest as her exhaustion takes over.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as the group walks through the hall to settle the new guests.
Pell addresses the Grand Duke and Lady Letitia as they gather in the hall.
The blonde physician interrupts, stating that he has urgent information for both of them.
The ornate interior remains quiet as the group prepares for the physician's report.
The physician reports that a sudden epidemic began spreading just as they left the capital.
Pell adds that rumors are already blaming the Grand Duke for the sudden sickness.
Letitia questions the connection between Callian and the epidemic, but the physician notes the timing.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Callian asks if he is being accused of cursing the city.
Callian wonders if people believe the gods are angry because a deposed prince returned.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Pell asks in shock how Callian knew those specific rumors. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Callian smirks, noting the predictability of the situation. Narrative text reveals the previous epidemic was the Empress Dowager's work, just like this one. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Callian examines a letter while standing on the balcony.
The letter contains a blunt warning to be wary of the Empress Dowager.
Callian realizes this was the Emperor's warning, noting the Empress Dowager's growing restlessness.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Callian taps his foot, contemplating his next move.
Callian reflects on his past life, where he met every obstacle with his sword. Letitia questions if anyone would truly believe such a ridiculous and unfounded rumor.
Pell explains that people are easily swayed by rumors, especially when faced with visible illness.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the blonde physician asks for permission to share a theory. Callian gives the physician his full attention and orders him to proceed.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the physician reaches into his medical case with skepticism.
A sudden, quick splash sounds as the physician declares that the situation is not an epidemic. Callian stares intently as the physician reveals the water has been laced with poison. The physician firmly repeats his conclusion that the mass illness is actually a case of poisoning.
Letitia and Pell are visibly shaken by the revelation of the deliberate poisoning.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Pell panics, fearing he might die from the contaminated water. In chibi form, the physician admits he cannot be certain about the outcome yet.
Callian sits back and asks the physician to explain the reasoning behind his theory. The physician explains that the lack of an incubation period makes an epidemic highly unlikely.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the physician presents a map marking the contaminated wells.
Callian asks if their own group's illness confirmed the physician's theory about the water.
Callian asks for more details regarding the specific type of poison used in the wells.
The physician describes the poison as colorless and odorless, making it difficult to identify.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Callian asks for the antidote, which the physician doesn't know.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the physician bows deeply, begging for Callian's mercy. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the physician looks up, startled by Callian's calm questioning.
Callian asks about the symptoms, and the physician clarifies they are mostly mild stomach aches. Callian concludes that the primary goal is simply to damage his reputation. Callian dismisses the group while Letitia watches him with a concerned expression.
Callian looks toward Letitia and suggests that she should also go and get some rest.
A sudden quick creak sounds as Letitia departs, noting that Callian looks remarkably pale.
A sudden quick tap sounds as Kalian sighs, muttering about how annoying the situation has become.
Narrative text explains that the Empress Dowager will likely limit the spread to avoid public resentment.
Kalian's gaze is sharp and focused as he considers the political moves ahead. Letitia looks back with a worried expression, sensing the weight of Kalian's burdens.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Kalian wonders why Letitia looked at him so sadly.
Kalian prepares to smoke a cigar, his thoughts consumed by the current crisis.
Kalian closes his eyes, trying to dismiss a thought that seems impossible to him.
Letitia stands among white lilies, reflecting on the complexity of their lives.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as Letitia walks with Pell, asking him to follow her.
Pell scratches his head and apologizes to Letitia for his brief distraction.
Looking concerned, Letitia asks Pell if Kalian always behaves in such a manner.
Pell asks for clarification regarding which part of the Grand Duke's behavior she means.
Letitia wonders if Kalian always ignores malicious rumors, and Pell confirms he never clarifies them.
Letitia asks why he allows people to resent him for things he didn't do.
Pell recalls asking that same question before and receiving a very simple answer.
Kalian's indifferent face appears as Pell quotes him saying, "It is too bothersome to care."
Pell shrugs, explaining that his grace is simply naturally indifferent to what others think.
A voice calling Pell's name interrupts their conversation, causing him to stop mid-sentence.
A sudden quick creak sounds as Pell turns around with a startled and nervous expression.
Pell lets out a shocked eek as a scarred man suddenly appears behind him.
Pell leans in to whisper that he has urgent business and must leave Letitia.
A heavy sigh sounds as the scarred man asks Letitia if she will follow Pell.
The man explains Kalian reacts to false rumors that way because he considers them natural.
Letitia is stunned when the man reveals that Kalian thinks of himself as a sinner.
The scarred man bows deeply, stating that is all the information he can provide.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as the man walks away, leaving Letitia alone in the hallway.
Letitia recalls Kalian's pained expression and the sweat on his face from their previous meeting.
A heavy sigh sounds as Letitia admits she cannot stop thinking about Kalian's condition.
Letitia finds Philip and calls out to the blonde physician in the hallway.
The morning light filters through the private and empty rooms of the grand estate.
Philip confirms the poison is likely odorless and asks Letitia to look at a sample.
Letitia looks at the items on the table and asks Philip for more details.
Philip explains he created a special reagent that causes chemical reactions when contacting specific poisons.
Philip admits that testing the reagent on the well water strangely resulted in no reaction.
Letitia stares intensely at the sample, her mind racing with a new and sudden realization. Letitia recalls a rumor about an interesting spice that has recently arrived in the capital. A hazy memory shows the hem of a dress and the feet of someone standing nearby.
Letitia remembers a man's dark clothing and his cold, calculating smile during a past encounter. Letitia gasps in shock as she finally connects the pieces of the poisoning mystery together. Letitia tells a confused Philip that she agrees with his assessment about the unusual poison. Holding the jar, Letitia confidently states that she knows exactly what was mixed into the water.
Letitia declares her belief that this entire incident is directly related to the Godwin family.
Philip asks in surprise if she is referring specifically to the Godwin ducal family.
Letitia explains that the family recently and secretly imported a very specific type of spice.
She identifies the spice as tetrad, which becomes deadly poison if processed at low temperatures. Letitia notes the information was secret, allowing the family to get import permits without trouble.
Philip finally understands why the substance failed to show up during his standard medical tests. Philip looks worried, noting that the situation is far more serious than he initially realized. Philip asks how she knows such details after seeing a vision of a sick child.
Letitia explains she saw the information in documents while visiting the Godwin ducal estate.
Letitia asks Philip if he has heard any other rumors about who might be involved.
Philip mentions that Lady Appels is currently the only noble in the capital showing symptoms.
Letitia asks if Appels is Patrick's lover, and Philip begins to mention something about Patrick. Philip reveals Patrick was recently hired as a scribe, and Letitia realizes the conspiracy is vast.
An ornate red chair sits alone under a bright light as the chapter concludes.
A dark and grainy atmosphere marks a shift in the scene's location and time. Kalian rests on a teal couch with a cigar, his face hidden by his arm.
A sudden, quick knock sounds as someone asks the Grand Duke for permission to enter.
Kalian irritably reminds the visitor that he gave orders not to be disturbed for a while.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian sits up abruptly, his silver hair looking slightly disheveled.
A sudden, quick bang sounds as Letitia asks about the noise, while the scarred aide admits he is also unsure.
Letitia looks off to the side with a thoughtful and quiet expression, her long pink hair flowing down.
A sudden, quick creak sounds as Letitia opens the door, stating she has something important to tell Kalian.
A sudden, quick thud sounds as Letitia enters the room, her eyes wide with a sense of urgency.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalian sits in an ornate chair and asks Letitia for the reason for her visit.
A sudden, quick pop sounds as Kalian apologizes for the smell, mentioning he forgot to air out the room. Rhythmic clicking sounds as the camera focuses on an ashtray under the table filled with discarded cigar butts. A sudden quick creak sounds as Kalyan opens the large window and asks if the fresh air helps.
Kalyan explains he is in the process of quitting smoking as Letitia stands in the middle of the room.
Letitia reflects to herself that someone she knows possesses a strong dislike for the smell of smoke.
Kalyan asks Letitia for the specific reason that brought her to his private quarters at this hour.
Letitia reveals her discovery, stating that the current incident was entirely the work of a man named Patrick.
Letitia explains that Patrick would do anything for the inheritance, but lacks the individual power to succeed.
Letitia looks at Kalyan with a serious expression and asks if he knows anything about these developments. Narrative text on a letter provides a blunt and chilling warning to be wary of the Empress Dowager. Kalyan looks at Letitia and notes that she has likely already deduced a significant portion of the truth.
Letitia confirms her suspicion that the imperial family has been secretly providing assistance to Patrick.
Letitia informs Kalyan of her final decision to proceed with a meeting with Peter Godwin. Narrative text on a pink floral background suggests that it would be best to move up their current schedule. The scene shifts to the snowy border regions several days later, where a large stone fortress stands.
Peter Godwin expresses his frustration about having to wait for his meeting with the Grand Duke.
A guard apologizes while stating that outsiders are strictly forbidden from entering the north without permission.
Peter Godwin, the young lord of the Godwin Duchy, looks extremely annoyed and frustrated by the delay.
Nero, the orange-haired aide, warns Peter that they are being observed by the people around them.
A sudden, quick snap sounds as Peter complains that the heavy rains have completely ruined their travel schedule.
In chibi form, Nero reminds Peter that his own laziness caused them to wait for the rain to stop.
Nero mentions the high cost of travel scrolls while Peter playfully teases him about his spending habits.
A heavy sigh sounds as Peter asks if there has been any recent news or contact from his father.
Nero confirms that there has been absolutely no response to their letters or carrier pigeons.
Nero notes the odd timing of the plague and Patrick's sudden appointment as an imperial palace scribe.
Peter smirks as he wonders why the reclusive Grand Duke suddenly contacted him for a private meeting.
Peter concludes that the entire situation feels incredibly suspicious and smells fishy.
A sudden, quick shh sounds as Nero reminds Peter that he ignored all his previous warnings.
Peter shushes Nero back in a stylized panel, maintaining their bickering and competitive dynamic.
A sudden, quick thud sounds as Peter orders a report to be sent to his grace one more time.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as the scarred aide approaches Peter with a calm and professional demeanor.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the scarred aide asks Peter to confirm his identity as Lord Peter Godwin.
The scarred aide instructs Peter to follow him, leading the group into the interior of the fortress.
Promotional text for the series appears over an illustration of Letitia and Kalyan in an embrace.
A thought bubble repeats that the current situation smells fishy as the scene begins to transition.
Nero remarks that Peter is finally taking a genuine interest in the strange events unfolding around them. Peter shushes Nero once more, signaling for him to remain quiet as they proceed with their mission.
The scene shifts to an empty, ornate room as a voice calls out Kalyan's name from off-screen.
Letitia looks directly forward and firmly states that she came to meet with the young lord.
Kalyan looks at Letitia with a neutral expression and simply acknowledges that she did make that statement.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Letitia, wrapped tightly in blankets, asks how she ended up in this situation.
A sudden, quick thud sounds as Kalyan tells Letitia this is the price for lying, which she quickly disputes.
A sudden, quick poke sounds as Kalyan pokes Letitia's forehead and tells her it's not time to be lying down. A sudden, quick flop sounds as Letitia falls back onto the bed while Kalyan notes his past leniency.
Kalyan confronts Letitia with a bloody handkerchief, questioning her claims of being in good health.
Letitia panics internally, realizing she forgot to hide the blood-stained cloth from the previous night.
The pink-haired woman looks anxious as she remains bundled under the covers of her bed. Holding the evidence, Kalyan sternly asks if she has been coughing up blood every single night. When she denies the symptoms, Kalyan refuses to believe her and mandates twice-daily medical checkups.
Letitia sits up abruptly, protesting that such frequent medical supervision is a bit excessive.
Kalyan calls out her name with a serious expression, silencing her objections with a stern look.
Resigned to his command, Letitia sighs and agrees to follow the new medical schedule.
Kalyan looks at her for a moment, his expression softened but still resolved.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as the pair later walks down a grand hallway together.
Letitia asks Kalyan if there has been any improvement among the commoners who drank the war.
Kalyan reveals that while most are recovering, a boy named Alan is still in critical condition.
Letitia looks down with a somber and quiet expression as she processes the grim news.
Narrative text explains that the local situation grew significantly worse over the following few days. Tensions rise at the stone fortress as people blame Kalyan for the worsening health of the children.
Patrick uses the crisis to distribute grain, manipulating the sick to turn public opinion in his favor.
Standing before large doors, Letitia resolves that she cannot simply watch these events unfold passively. A sudden quick creak sounds as the doors open to reveal the determined pink-haired woman.
Peter Godwin, a man with long dark hair, appears amidst a bright and floral background.
Rhythmic clicking sounds as Peter bows deeply, expressing his long-awaited meeting with the Grand Duke.
Peter acknowledges Latricia's presence, noting that it has been a long time since their last encounter.
Peter looks at her with a curious and sharp gaze, his bright blue eyes narrowed.
He notes to himself that her eyes now have a spark he never saw before. Peter observes that Colleen's attention is fixed solely on Latricia as they stand together. The couple stands together against a playful pink background, creating a moment of quiet solidarity.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Colleen looks away, appearing slightly flustered by the close proximity.
Peter smirks, imagining Patrick's intense frustration if he were here to witness the couple's closeness.
The camera focuses on Peter's intense and calculating blue eye as he observes the pair.
Peter compliments Latricia on her beautiful brooch as she holds it securely in her hand.
A sudden quick rub sounds as Peter touches his chin, pondering if something about the situation is odd.
A memory surfaces of a man wearing a similar emerald brooch, making Peter wonder if it belongs to Patrick.
A hazy white light fills the screen, signaling a shift in the atmosphere of the room.
A sudden, quick snap sounds as Peter smiles warmly, his expression appearing far more friendly.
A thought bubble reveals Peter's lingering suspicion about whether the jewel truly belongs to Patrick.
A soft blue glow permeates the air as the scene transitions back to the negotiation.
Peter identifies the toxin as tetrad, a substance capable of killing without leaving any detectable trace.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Peter admits he finds Patrick's easy cooperation with the annulment suspicious.
Bowing his head, Peter expresses deep shame as a Godwin for the trouble caused by their family's goods. Peter reflects that this scandal provides a perfect opportunity to permanently remove Patrick from his way. Narrative text mentions family accountability as Peter asks what price they expect for this information. Colleen states he originally considered a trade deal involving the Viscount's company as the price. A sudden, quick squeeze sounds as Colleen takes Latricia's hand, noting she wants more than a simple trade. Colleen closes his eyes and tells Peter that the final details of the request are up to Latricia.
Latricia looks Peter directly in the eye and declares that they require two specific things.
Peter smiles and agrees to listen, privately intrigued by the dynamic between the Duke and his wife.
Latricia moves to the second part of her demand, which directly concerns the current epidemic. Peter immediately apologizes and declines any requests that might lend weight to rumors about the Grand Duke. He explains as a merchant he cannot risk the criticism that would follow revealing the truth. Latricia asserts that fulfilling her request will actually be to Peter's advantage, sparking his curiosity.
Latricia requests that he sell them the tetrad, prompting Peter to ask how that would benefit him.
Latricia requests that the source of the antidote be publicly credited to them.
She emphasizes the need for a public announcement once the current crisis finally settles.
A playful smile crosses her face as she begins to introduce a secondary condition.
The scene focuses on her requirement to reveal their involvement in finding the cure. Colleen remains stoic and silent, his intense blue eyes fixed on the ongoing negotiations. Peter Godwin smirks as the narrative notes that family accountability will be safely avoided. Peter agrees to provide the toxin and finalize the deal after the antidote is ready.
Latricia presents the rare plant to Pell, inquiring about the timeline for completing the cure.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Pell, the blonde-haired doctor, expresses shock at their success. Pell explains the extreme difficulty of working with selectively bred plants to the attentive couple. Feeling the weight of Colleen's gaze, the doctor nervously promises a very swift result.
A sudden, quick scamper sounds as Pell hurries away, leaving Latricia appearing quite bewildered.
Latricia watches him go, her expression filled with a quiet and lingering sense of curiosity.
Noticing his intense mood, Latricia asks Colleen why he looks so troubled at this moment. Colleen questions the complexity of her plan when simpler, more direct options were readily available.
Peter maintains a cheerful facade as Colleen decides the man must stay to witness everything.
Colleen's inner thoughts reveal his deep-seated dislike for Peter's appearance and his suspicious intentions.
Recalling events from his past life, Colleen's blue eye shines with a cold determination.
Colleen sternly warns Latricia to maintain her distance from the flashy and untrustworthy Viscount Godwin.
Despite her dismissal of his warning, a sudden wave of intense unease washes over her.
Latricia winces and clutches her chest as a sharp, painful tightness suddenly takes hold. Colleen immediately notices her distress and asks what is bothering her so much right now. Trying to hide her pain, she claims her stomach is merely feeling slightly uncomfortable.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Colleen seizes her hand, suspecting simple indigestion.
He holds her hand close to check for a chill, finding her skin quite warm.
Overcome with embarrassment, Latricia flails her arms and loudly denies any serious or lasting ailment.
A sudden, quick squeeze sounds as their hands remain tightly locked in a brief moment.
Kalyan insists on summoning the doctor, but she protests to prioritize the production of the antidote.
A sudden, quick grab sounds as she holds onto his arm to prevent his departure.
A sudden, quick thud sounds as Latricia stubbornly asserts her health, claiming she lacks a fever.
She continues to list reasons why she is fine while shifting her stance and posture. The two share a tense, intimate moment amidst a soft background filled with red roses.
Latricia announces her plan to check on the sick boy named Alan alone tonight.
She dismisses Kalyan's offer to accompany her, telling him to wait in the study instead.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as she turns away, her long pink hair swaying gracefully.
The scene shifts to a dim and empty hallway, illuminated only by soft, flickering candlelight.
Latricia exhales a heavy sigh, questioning why Kalyan is behaving so strangely and intensely tonight.
A sudden, quick creak sounds as she enters the sick room to check on young Alan. She is surprised to find a gray-haired man and a masked maid already inside.
The servants explain they were merely looking after the boy while she was occupied elsewhere.
The two servants bicker in low whispers about whether they should have remained hidden.
Latricia surprises them by expressing her sincere gratitude for their kindness toward the sick child. She admits she had previously assumed they held a personal grudge or dislike against her.
They both shout in unison that her assumption about their feelings is completely incorrect.
The gray-haired man begins to explain the real vulnerable reason behind their avoidant behavior.
They reveal their physical scars and prosthetic leg, fearing she would find them repulsive or disgusting. Latricia expresses her relief, admitting she was secretly worried she was an unwelcome guest.
Stunned by her acceptance, the gray-haired man asks if she truly isn't disgusted by them.
The servants look at her with wide eyes, awaiting her genuine and honest reaction.
Latricia gives them a bright, warm smile and notes that the situation has improved.
The gray-haired servant and Marcia apologize for their past assumptions and offer to serve Latricia faithfully.
Latricia thanks them but declines the offer for wholehearted service, surprising the pair.
A speech bubble clarifies that moderate service is more than enough for her. A sudden quick mutter sounds as Latricia compares herself to a short-term guest.
The gray-haired man asks how she knew about his inner thoughts.
Chibi Latricia reveals it was just a lucky guess, leaving the servants stunned.
Marcia asks Latricia about her favorite sweets, while the gray-haired man scolds her to maintain her dignity.
Latricia stares ahead with a neutral and quiet expression.
A hand in a white glove presents a glistening slice of lemon cake.
A soft and warm smile spreads across Latricia's face. The servants walk away together, debating whether it matters if her guess was right or wrong. A sudden quick click sounds as Latricia enters the study and remarks on the extravagant atmosphere.
Latricia walks down the hall, wondering if the maid named Mia has already arrived.
A sudden, quick exhale sounds as a dark-haired man breathes softly against Latricia's ear.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Peter Godwin asks what she has lost while Latricia recoils in shock. Peter Godwin smiles brightly amidst a backdrop of white flowers. Latricia and Kalyan share a romantic embrace in a formal framed portrait.
Peter Godwin repeats his question about what she might have lost in the hallway. He greets her formally as the Grand Duchess.
Latricia questions why he is in the main hall instead of the guest room, to which he claims he simply got lost. Latricia remains visibly startled by the unexpected encounter. Peter notes that Mia, the brunette maid, was unhelpful as she stands with an orange-haired servant.
A sudden, quick scamper sounds as Latricia grabs Mia and moves her away from the Viscount.
Latricia explains that the child is shy and offers to assign a different servant to him.
Peter suggests that the Duchess herself should guide him instead.
He jokingly claims to be shy but mentions they share a special connection.
Peter asks if that arrangement is acceptable, causing visible distress to Mia. Rhythmic clicking sounds as the group walks down the grand, carpeted hallway together. Latricia recalls Kalyan's warning to stay away from Peter as she reassures herself there is no reason to worry.
Peter remarks on the pleasant nature of the North while Latricia remains stoic.
Peter asks if the landmark visible outside is the Student Tower. Latricia confirms the tower's name and asks how he is already familiar with it. Peter mentions he overheard that wishes made at the tower come true for a price. A sudden, quick whisper sounds as Peter suggests that the price for a wish might be her life. Latricia stares at the clock tower while Peter notes that the hands appear to have moved. Latricia wonders if the Count and young Lord Esta are troubled by Patrick's infidelity.
Peter informs her that Lord Esta already knows and the Count remains largely indifferent.
Latricia questions the gravity of the news, noting Patrick would be in danger if Lord Esta knew.
The pair arrives at the annex where Peter notes the path was shorter than expected.
A sudden quick bow sounds as Peter prepares to enter his quarters. Peter notes that Latricia looks much better than she did in the capital.
Latricia smiles and accepts the comment as a compliment.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Peter smiles and takes his leave. Narrative text explains that a few days have passed as the scene shifts to the stone fortress.
Latricia visits Alan, asking how the patient feels half a day after taking the antidote.
Alan, the lavender-haired child, excitedly declares that they feel much better and ready to live normally.
Latricia expresses her deep relief at the child's recovery. Pell, Kalyan, and Peter Godwin stand together in the hallway. Pell inquires about the status of the patient named Alan. Latricia happily reports that the patient has noticeably improved and the antidote is effective. The black-haired woman in the white coat asks Pell for the estimated timeline for distributing the antidote in the capital. Pell explains that while production takes 5 days, a significant and urgent supply problem currently exists. He presents a small sample of the rare tetrad plant, emphasizing that the current amount is insufficient for mass distribution. Kalayan questions why acquiring more of the plant is considered such an extremely difficult and taxing undertaking. The black-haired woman considers the amount diluted in the well and worries about the remaining quantity available to them. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as she fears further delays will lead to more deaths before they can secure ingredients. She asks if a substitute exists, but Pell confirms that no other ingredient can currently replace the tetrad. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as she expresses frustration that her father has yet to make any contact with her. A sudden, silent pause indicates that she has just experienced a moment of intense and sudden realization.
Latricia remembers that another family in the Empire possesses tetrad, specifically noting the Godwin family spice monopoly.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as several hands gesture toward a floral crust during the intense discussion. Kalian remains skeptical, noting that the Duke would never have willingly parted with such a precious and rare spice. A flashback reveals that transport fees were recently paid using expensive and rare spices due to various misfortunes. The narrative notes that the bags of expensive spices provided as payment almost certainly contained the necessary tetrad. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the black-haired woman suggests that asking Latricia's family is the best option. Kalian suggests that the Grand Duchess should retrieve the spices from the Count herself to expedite the process. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the black-haired woman notes the restrictive conditions the Count set regarding their rights. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as she glances sideways, declaring that someone other than herself must go. She insists that another individual must handle the upcoming negotiations with the Count to secure the tetrad. Latricia appears completely stunned as the focus shifts to her, realizing she is the intended messenger.
She questions the feasibility of the plan, shocked by the sudden suggestion that she must handle the task.
Sunlight bathes the grand white facade of an estate nestled beside a lush green mountain under a clear sky. A sudden, loud sneeze sounds as a man's face is shown in profile against the dim interior of a room.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as a brown-haired man turns away and asks how long the goods must remain there. A thought bubble expresses his growing annoyance regarding the tricky and bothersome storage methods required for the bags.
3 large, tied white bags sit in the shadows of a dim warehouse, glowing with a soft light. A sudden, quick scratch sounds as the man reaches up to poke his itchy ear with a finger.
He wonders aloud who might be speaking ill of him behind his back at this exact moment.
A decorative board displays posters for various series, alongside urgent recruitment details for several paid positions.
An older blonde man in a tan coat stands with his back to the viewer before grand white doors.
The scene shifts to the interior of an elegantly furnished and quiet room featuring a white scalloped sofa. Several large gold coins are spread across the surface of a polished white marble table.
A sudden, quick scratch sounds as the older blonde man scowls, calling someone's behavior incredibly impudent.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as a brown-haired man walks through the doorway to find his father.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the younger man asks why his father continues to peek into Latricia's room. The Count turns his head slightly, addressing the younger brown-haired man by the name Isis.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Isis stretches and complains about Latricia's total lack of communication. He laments the trouble caused by the plague and the public resentment they are currently facing. A sudden, loud bang sounds as the scene transitions following their tense and heated exchange. A sudden, heavy stomp sounds as the 2 men walk down the grand hallway together in silence. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Isis looks back and asks his father if he has heard the latest news.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Isis notes that Duke Godwin has not been appearing in public lately.
A thought bubble explains that the Duke has allegedly contracted the plague, which is keeping him in hiding. A sudden, quick turn sounds as the Count looks back, visibly shocked by the sudden revelation.
The Count assumes this illness is the reason for the Duke's silence regarding the broken engagement.
Isis interjects, stating that the Duke's silence isn't a matter of choice, but an absolute necessity. A sudden, quick scratch sounds as Isis explains that there is absolutely nothing the man can say. Thought bubbles clarify that Patrick's shameful act of cheating has left him with no ground to stand on.
A sudden, loud shout sounds as the Count reacts with shock to the news of Patrick's blatant infidelity.
Isis vents his disbelief at the betrayal, noting that Patrick has been secretly seeing a woman named Rose Applesaltz. A sudden, sharp crack sounds as Isis clenches his fist in fury, declaring that a certain halfwit has overstepped their bounds.
Isis informs his father that while he did not attend the recent victory banquet, Latricia provided him with the details of what occurred.
A sudden, loud shout sounds as Isis yells at his father, questioning if he has completely lost his mind.
Count Esta demands to know why Isis kept this information secret until now, lamenting that they are being treated like a joke.
Isis defends himself, stating he assumed his father didn't care about anything involving Latricia, and notes that Duke Godwin has been refusing all visitors.
A sudden, quick shrug sounds as Isis dismisses the situation, claiming it doesn't matter much in the grand scheme of things.
A sudden, quick tisk sounds as Count Esta scoffs at Latricia, labeling her a spineless girl for her lack of action. Count Esta declares his firm intention to visit Duke Godwin personally to resolve the matter.
Isis questions what difference his father's presence will make, since the Duke hasn't opened his door for anyone recently.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Count Esta asserts his confidence, stating he has a very specific reason to meet with the Duke. Narrative text highlights that Count Esta is planning to use the goods and receipts received from the Godwin side as his leverage. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as the Count prepares to use the documentation to force a confrontation. Count Esta gleefully plots to threaten the Duke with public exposure, believing he will be unable to resist opening the door. The scene transitions to the grand white towers of the fortress standing tall under a clear sky. Latricia looks completely stunned by the sudden suggestion that she should be the one to visit her family.
Pell suggests that it would be most effective if the Grand Duchess herself handled the meeting with Count Esta. Kalyan immediately rejects the plan as nonsense, doubting that the Count would agree to trade as readily as they hope.
A sudden, quick laugh sounds as Peter Godwin suggests that no father would realistically refuse help from his own daughter. Latricia tells the young Duke to stop with the nonsense, insisting that they must focus on collecting the tetrad spice. Kalyan turns to Pell, calling her name to get a definitive answer on their current resources.
Pell reports that the current antidote supply is barely enough for the knights and the patient named Alan.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Kalyan insists the amount is sufficient, but Latricia argues that the people in the capital need more. Kalyan looks at Latricia with a hard expression, questioning why she is so determined to carry out this plan.
Latricia hesitates, questioning the reality of her father granting such a request, but remains firm in her desire to try.
Kalyan demands to know why the opportunity to help must come specifically from her. Kalyan reminds her of the poor treatment she suffered from the Count's family and questions why she would voluntarily return to them.
Kalyan gazes at her intensely, unsure if her determination stems from being too kind or simply too naive over an antidote.
Narrative text reflects Kalyan's cold perspective as he admits he has no reason to care for those who have already rejected him. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Latricia reaches out and gently grabs Kalyan's sleeve in a silent plea. Kalyan expresses his regret, apologizing for not being the mature and understanding husband she deserves. The pair stands together in the dim room as the tension between their differing viewpoints remains unresolved.
Kalyan suggests that if she is so worried about the capital, they could simply sell the antidote recipe through the young Duke instead. Kalyan asserts that silencing the rumors about himself is his own business and has nothing to do with her.
Kalyan looks back at her with a stern expression, warning her one final time not to get involved.
Kalyan declares that he will take care of the entire matter himself the following morning.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as Latricia bows her head in distress, apologizing for overstepping her boundaries.
Latricia abruptly announces her departure, leaving Peter Godwin and Kalyan standing in silence.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Kalyan reaches out his hand, fruitlessly calling after her as she leaves.
Latricia forces a pained smile, claiming she simply needs time to review her lessons from the previous day.
A sudden quick click sounds as Latricia walks away, her footsteps echoing through the quiet room.
Kalyan looks deeply troubled and regretful as he watches her disappear into the hallway. Peter Godwin and Pell look on with visible concern following the heated exchange between the couple.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Peter Godwin glances sideways, observing the lingering awkwardness. Kalyan tries to play off the tension, defensively claiming that they weren't actually fighting. Against a playful background, Kalyan insists once more that the interaction was not a conflict. A silhouette of a black bird appears against a green background as the atmosphere shifts into a moment of silence. A sudden, quick laugh sounds as Peter Godwin finds the situation amusing, much to Kalyan's annoyance.
A sudden, quick cough sounds as Peter Godwin advises Kalyan to fix his frowning face if he wants anyone to believe him. Chibi versions of the group show Peter Godwin and Pell watching as Kalyan tries to pull his face into a better expression.
A sudden, tired exhale sounds as Kalyan rubs his face, ordering Peter never to mention Count Esta to his wife again.
Peter Godwin agrees to follow the Grand Duke's wishes. Peter asks if Kalyan plans to follow Latricia, noting her visible distress.
Peter suggests Latricia felt hurt by the clear distance Kalyan maintained, causing the silver-haired man's hand to flinch. Kalyan questions Latricia's concern, but Peter affirms her expression was filled with worry for him. Kalyan softly repeats the word worried as he processes the information. A sudden quick rustle sounds as Kalyan starts walking away, causing Peter to worry if he misspoke. A sudden quick inhale sounds as Peter senses the shifting mood.
Kalyan informs Peter that since the antidote is finished, there is no further reason for him to stay.
Peter questions if he is unwanted, and Kalyan bluntly admits that his presence is uncomfortable. Kalyan orders Peter to return to the capital within the week, citing his duties as the young duke. A chibi version of Peter shrugs dismissively, noting that the same logic applies to Kalyan as well. A sudden, quick stop sounds as Kalyan halts his steps in the hallway.
Kalyan looks back, insisting his departure is due to urgent matters rather than Peter's words.
Peter offers a knowing smile and agrees that he understands the situation perfectly.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as Kalyan resumes his walk, leaving the two men behind.
Peter finds the situation amusing, chuckling at such an uncharacteristic reaction from the cold Grand Duke. Looking out at the clock tower, Peter reflects on how entertaining life in the castle has become. Peter weighs the boredom of his work back home against the risk of making Kalyan even angrier.
Pell suggests they return to their quarters for the time being.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Peter agrees to follow the aide's suggestion.
Peter mutters to himself that he would rather face a scolding than deal with persistent boredom.
Pell asks for clarification, but Peter dismisses it as idle talk while they walk away.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as Kalyan walks through the grand corridor alone.
Kalyan reflects on Peter being a troublesome man, recalling how they met after Latricia's death in another life.
Thoughts reveal that Peter provided an ancient book about the Tower of Stoughton, which enabled Kalyan's return to the past.
Kalyan remains puzzled by Peter's motives and how he possessed such a significant artifact.
A sudden sharp crack sounds as Kalyan clenches his fist, resolving to send Peter away soon.
The scene shifts to the interior of a massive, quiet library filled with towering bookshelves.
Latricia sits alone at a long table, leaning her head on her arms in a state of exhaustion.
Kalyan approaches her, stating firmly that he will take care of everything himself the next morning.
Latricia remains hunched over, questioning his sudden change in behavior after so much silence.
A sudden, quick knock sounds on the heavy library doors. Latricia jumps in surprise, her eyes wide as she looks toward the entrance.
Someone asks to enter, prompting a panicked Latricia to beg for a moment's wait.
A sudden, quick click sounds as the door handle begins to turn.
A sudden, quick thud sounds as Latricia scrambles to hide, accidentally leaving one of her shoes behind.
She gazes back in horror at the lost shoe while attempting to remain out of sight.
A sudden, quick creak sounds as Kalyan enters the room, his expression calm and steady. The library appears abandoned, save for the single white high-heeled shoe resting on the carpet. Latricia hides behind a wooden pillar, covering her mouth as Kalyan calls her name.
She frets about her awkward situation, realizing she cannot easily reveal herself now.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Colleen picks up the shoe, while Latricia hopes he will leave quickly.
Latricia waits in suspense, watching him from her hiding spot.
Kalyan muses aloud that he didn't realize she wanted to play a game of hide-and-seek.
Latricia's eye is shown in a close-up as she realizes she has been found.
Kalyan finds her tucked away and asks why she is hiding in the corner. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kalyan leans in, leaving Latricia stunned that he didn't depart. Kalyan kneels to return her shoe, dismissing her concerns about his upcoming meeting with the retainers.
Latricia urges him to go to avoid upsetting his staff, forcing a bright and nervous smile.
Kalyan gazes at her intently, his expression unreadable as he lingers in her presence.
A sudden, quick slide sounds as a man's hand gently slides under a small, bare foot.
Latricia is shocked that Kalyan is touching her feet, frantically telling him they are dirty.
Kalyan looks up with a calm gaze, questioning how his wife's feet could possibly be dirty.
Latricia is left stunned and blushing, unable to find an immediate reply to his sincere question.
A sudden, quick slide sounds as Kalyan carefully fits a white high-heeled shoe onto her foot. Kneeling before her in the quiet library, Kalyan softly asks if his actions have hurt her feelings.
The question hangs in the air, framed by a soft, glowing light that emphasizes his genuine concern.
The silver-haired man remains in his humble position, waiting patiently for her to address his worry.
Latricia stammeringly denies being hurt, struggling to maintain her composure during the intimate moment.
She gestures toward the bookshelves, claiming she only returned to the library to read a fairy tale. A sudden, quick flinch sounds as Latricia freezes, realizing her excuse is incredibly transparent. Kalyan looks down with a somber expression, admitting that his behavior was driven by worry for her.
Kalyan confesses he investigated her past living conditions and hopes she isn't offended by his interference.
Kalyan questions if maintaining their current distance is truly the right answer for their relationship.
Latricia listens in silence, a gentle and thoughtful smile spreading across her face.
Narrative text reflects her inner thought that her past life was indeed far from pleasant.
Kalyan explains he only wanted to prevent her from being involved with those who mistreated her.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Kalyan firmly grips her hands, his desperation becoming visible.
Kalyan asks if his past mistakes mean she should hate him just as she hates her family.
Kalyan looks away with a blush, admitting he would be glad if she chose to hate him.
Kalyan clarifies that it is not a demand and she is entirely free to hate him.
A A sudden, sharp stab sounds as chibi versions show Latricia admitting she was upset and Colleen apologizing.
Latricia looks at him seriously, beginning to respond to his heartfelt confession.
Colleen leans his head against her lap, pleading with her not to hate him for too long. A moment of deep, heavy silence fills the massive library as the two remain still. A sudden quick rustle sounds as Colleen admits he is embarrassed by his own emotional display. A sudden quick rustle sounds as Colleen notices Latricia trembling, causing him to call her name.
Latricia bursts into a bright, joyful laugh, leaving the blushing, silver-haired man completely bewildered.
Latricia explains through her laughter that she is simply reacting to the immense relief she feels.
A sudden quick tap sounds as Colleen touches her face, suggesting she should smile more often.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as the chibi Latricia bashfully tells him to stop teasing her.
Latricia covers her face with her hands, admitting she would still be worrying alone without his words. A sudden, quick slide sounds as Callian takes her hands, dismissing her self-doubt as useless.
Callian asserts that everyone in the castle values her and doesn't see her work as useless.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Latricia smiles softly, asking if that is truly the case. The scene shifts as Latricia mentions she is suddenly curious about a specific detail. Latricia questions since when his supposedly injured arm has actually been fully healed. Chibi versions show Colleen feigning injury with an ouch while Latricia stares at him unimpressed. A caption marks the transition to the next day as the group prepares to depart. Peter Godwin shouts at a guard to handle his luggage as if it were a delicate baby.
Pell scolds Peter for his lack of dignity, while the black-haired man defends his reckless belongings.
Colleen asks why Peter bought so many souvenirs when there was nothing special to find locally.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Peter insists everything was fascinating while Pell looks on exhausted.
Latricia admits she thought Peter would stay longer, making his departure quite unexpected.
Peter asks if she is disappointed and offers to stay, which she politely and quickly declines.
A sudden quick slide sounds as Peter attempts to linger, only for Callian to step between them.
Callian glares at Peter, reminding him he has urgent duties waiting back at the capital.
Peter takes the hint and asks for another invitation once their current business is successful.
Chibi versions show Callian coldly refusing to call him for anything other than official business matters.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as Peter Godwin offers a respectful bow to the Grand Duchess.
The black-haired man asks the Grand Duchess for her hand in a final farewell.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as Callian interrupts, declaring that the goodbyes have been sufficient. Callian stands possessively by Latricia's side while the pink-haired woman looks up in mild surprise.
Peter finds the display amusing, while Pell informs him that departure preparations are complete.
Someone acknowledges a companion named Nero as they prepare to set off on their journey.
The black-haired man offers a final well-wish before heading off to resume his work.
A sudden quick clatter sounds as the ornate white carriage pulls away from the Grand Castle.
The couple watches the departure in silence as the morning sun illuminates the stone balcony.
A sudden quick squeeze sounds as Colleen takes her hand, questioning if Peter's absence saddens her. Latricia admits she feels a certain emptiness now that their guest has finally departed.
Callian repeats her words with a hint of contemplative jealousy visible in his expression. The silver-haired man looks away, seemingly affected by the thought of her missing another's presence.
Latricia clarifies Peter was simply talkative, prompting Callian to vow he will talk more too.
Latricia laughs at his competitive streak, teasingly asking if he is actually feeling jealous.
Colleen looks her in the eye and insists that he is being entirely serious.
Colleen hopes that giving her something she enjoys will bring a genuine smile to her face.
The silver-haired man softly speaks her name as he reaches into his pocket for a gift.
They stand close together in the castle courtyard, bathed in a warm and ethereal light.
A sudden quick rustle sounds as Latricia asks if he truly has something for her. A sudden quick tap sounds as Callian produces a small, familiar item from his person.
Latricia recognizes a past gift, and Callian apologizes for neglecting it during his previous state.
Thoughts reflect that the luggage from the capital was likely ruined by the heavy rain.
Callian expresses regret for only being able to save this one specific item during the chaos.
Callian explains he prioritized the paints because he knew they were precious to her. Latricia realizes he braved the storm specifically to rescue her favorite artistic supplies. Callian remains uncertain, asking if his focused actions were the wrong choice to make. Latricia feels a surge of emotion over a simple tube of paint and his sincere devotion.
Callian promises to provide a much better set of paints to replace her lost belongings.
A sudden quick squeeze sounds as she clutches the humble gift tightly to her heart.
Latricia is visibly moved by his sincerity, her eyes welling with silent appreciation. Narrative text reveals that his constant kindness is slowly breaking down her resolve to stay distant.
Callian notes that her reactions suggest she is genuinely worried about his well-being. A sudden quick pause sounds as Callian stops, stunned by the weight of her concern.
Latricia confesses her worry for him, leaving Callian searching for the right response.
A sudden quick step sounds as Callian halts her, calling her name with soft intensity. An aide observes that Latricia's worry was clear,
even if Kallian's previous coldness was confusing.
A sudden, quick poke sounds as Kallian touches his own face, pondering her deep affection.
A soft chuckle escapes the silver-haired man as he glows with newfound happiness. Latricia asks if something is wrong, but he dismisses her worry with a gentle reassurance.
Kallian extends his hand, inviting her to return inside the castle together.
The two walk side by side, their bond seemingly strengthened by the honest exchange. Latricia offers a peaceful smile, feeling the warmth of his presence beside her.
The grand castle stands majestic under the clear blue sky, signaling a change in atmosphere. During a meeting, a man proposes establishing a new supply route for upcoming military efforts.
Kallian approves the suggestion instantly, shocking the retainers with his uncharacteristic leniency.
The retainers stammer in disbelief, struggling to transition to the next agenda item.
Staff members whisper to each other about how unusually agreeable their lord seems today.
Chibi versions recall how Kallian normally rejects everything with cold, meticulous scrutiny. A retainer is startled when a proposal is rejected as usual, returning to the expected routine.
Kallian offers rare praise, acknowledging the hard work put into the proposal despite the rejection. Retainers whisper among themselves about how their lord has noticeably softened lately.
During a formal meeting, a retainer asks Kallian if something good has happened to him recently.
A pleasant smile appears on Kallian's face as he briefly confirms that something good occurred.
Kallian dismisses the topic, stating that the story behind his mood isn't very interesting to hear. Kallian blushes as he reveals his wife's concern for him is the source of his happiness. The retainers are completely shocked, shouting internally about their lord's unprecedented display of emotion.
Kallian returns to his stoic self, questioning their expressions before ordering the meeting to continue.
A staff member nervously transitions the discussion to the next agenda item regarding waterway expansion. In a quiet study, Philip notices Latricia's distraction and asks if anything is bothering her.
Latricia admits she has a sudden feeling that someone might be currently talking about her.
Philip refocuses their conversation on estimating the amount of antidote derivable from the tetrad.
Philip notes that he can only provide a rough estimate as they look over their notes. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Philip points to a complex diagram in his research journal.
Philip mentions the recovery of the knights and asks why she has taken a sudden interest.
Latricia voices her concern over the increasingly tense atmosphere reported near the northern border.
A panoramic view reveals Telshi Village, a settlement situated precariously close to the northern territory.
Narrative text explains how severe poisoning damage has fueled deep-seated hostility toward the north. Latricia reveals she heard rumors from the knights about a potential riot breaking out soon.
Philip realizes she intends to send the antidote to the village to protect the local children.
A sudden, quick squeeze sounds as Latricia clenches her dress, prioritizing the most urgent matters.
Latricia worries if the hostile residents will even be willing to accept aid from the castle.
A sudden, sharp stab sounds as Latricia is struck by a violent, unexpected headache.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Philip slams the table, shouting in alarm for Latricia.
A sudden, quick slide sounds as Latricia collapses, blood streaming from her nose in a dizzying haze.
Philip is horrified by the sight of the blood while Latricia tries to stay calm. Philip yells in frustration, angry that she concealed the worsening severity of her illness symptoms.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Philip refuses to continue antidote work, prioritizing her treatment instead.
Letitia's vision begins to fade as she asks Philip if a cure is even possible.
A heavy, dark bubble hangs in the air with her desperate inquiry about being cured. Philip stands over the table with a blood-stained cloth, his back turned in somber silence.
Philip's expression is filled with intense sorrow as he faces the reality of her condition.
A promo banner appears while a small dialogue bubble calls out the name Perel.
Latricia begs Philip to focus on the children's antidotes rather than her own impossible recovery.
Philip questions her hopeless attitude, insisting that there must be a way for her to improve.
Latricia stares blankly with a hollow gaze, seemingly resigned to her terminal fate.
Philip looks away with a pained expression, doubting if recovery is truly within their reach. Latricia looks down with an empty expression, the weight of her illness evident in her posture.
Latricia's inner thoughts against the blue sky insist that she is doing fine despite everything.
The majestic white spires of the castle reach toward the clouds in a momentary transition. A sudden, quick rustle sounds as a gavel announces the formal end of the day's meeting.
An aide observes that Colleen looks exhausted, and Colleen admits to a lack of sleep.
Kallian explains that the logistical burden of distributing the antidotes has kept him awake. The aide suggests that the Grand Duke should take some time to rest in his office.
A sudden, quick poke sounds as Kallian's gaze is drawn to a pink gem on the aide's cravat.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Kallian prepares to leave, deciding he must see Latricia immediately.
Chibi versions show the aide's bewilderment as Kallian claims his wife might worry if he's away.
A sudden, quick tap sounds as Kallian heads for the kitchen, declining the aide's offer of a meal. A sudden, quick tap sounds as Kallian explains he is specifically seeking out lemon sherbet. A flashback shows the couple enjoying tea, noting her fondness for sherbet even before the regression.
A soft, satisfied chuckle sounds as Kallian smiles warmly, anticipating the happiness his small gift will bring.
An aide calls out to Kalyan, offering to carry something for him.
Kalyan, carrying a tray with lemon sherbet, is stopped by his aide. Staff members look concerned as they stand together in the castle hallway.
Kalyan asks the group what they are doing before a man begins to answer.
Narrative text centers on Latricia's name against a dark and fractured backdrop.
Kalyan stands silently with the tray, his expression clouded by worry for his wife. The scene shifts to a bathroom where water drips rhythmically into a large tub.
Latricia rests in the bath with her eyes closed, surrounded by pink morning glories.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as Latricia flinches, looking toward the door in alarm.
Colleen calls for her from outside, and she realizes he arrived unexpectedly soon.
Latricia feels relieved that Piril didn't notice her vision has failed her again. Her hand fumbles across the side table, searching blindly for the bar of soap. A sudden, quick clatter sounds as Latricia accidentally knocks several bottles off the table.
Latricia asks Kalyan to leave, explaining that she is currently in the middle of bathing.
Kalyan mentions hearing about her recent nosebleed while she dismisses it as a frequent, minor occurrence.
Kalyan questions her shaky voice, but she blames the cold water used for laundry. Kalyan is confused, asking why she would be washing the clothes herself.
Latricia explains that she cannot ask the servants or him to handle her blood-stained items.
Kalyan startles her by firmly offering to do the laundry for her himself.
Kalyan insists he is serious and demands she hand over any blood-stained clothes to him.
Latricia asks if he will leave, but Kalyan decides he will wait right there.
She warns him it will take time, but he remains steadfast in his decision to wait.
Latricia laments showing him such a mess, wondering if her medicine is affecting her thoughts.
Latricia knows it is futile to hide things since Piril reports everything to him anyway.
Kalyan clenches his fist in silent frustration, mentally calling out her lie about hiding nothing.
Narrative text confirms that Latricia suffered from another nosebleed earlier.
In a flashback, Kalyan angrily tells Piril he should have stayed by Latricia's side. Piril explains he gave her medicine, but she insisted on resting alone and pushed him away. Kalyan looks at the bloodstains on the railing, questioning her dismissive attitude toward her health.
Narrative thoughts question who she thinks she is fooling while showing the blood-smeared railing.
Kalyan realizes she is blind again and wonders why she insists on carrying every burden alone.
A sudden quick squeeze sounds as Kalyan clenches his fist while standing silently outside.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Latricia calls out to see if he is still there.
Kalyan confirms his presence and asks if she needs anything from him.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Kalyan slumps against the door, telling her to bathe comfortably.
A soft splash sounds from within the room as Kalyan sits slumped on the floor.
The silver-haired man leans his head against the door in a moment of weary distress.
Narrative text reflects the heavy weight of his thoughts as he cannot fall asleep.
A soft, quick drip sounds as ripples form in the dark, still water.
Kalyan's eye snaps open as he is suddenly jolted by an internal sense of panic.
The silver-haired man looks toward the window as heavy rain begins to pour outside. Kalyan looks visibly distressed, questioning the sudden rain that was not expected today.
Kalyan fumbles through his clothes, desperately searching for his calming medicine.
Kalyan reacts with sudden shock as he realizes he might have left his pills behind.
A sudden quick tap sounds as he decides he must find Mark for his medicine first.
Kalyan stands in the hallway, looking back at the bathroom door with a conflicted expression.
The silver-haired man pauses, realizing the bathroom has gone completely silent.
The bathroom door stands closed and still under the shadows of the hallway. A dark and distorted view of the hallway emphasizes the chilling and unnatural silence.
A sudden loud bang sounds as Kalyan bursts through the door in a state of panic.
A bowl of lemon sherbet lies shattered on the floor as a panicked shout echoes.
With a sudden loud bang, the silver-haired man bursts into the room.
Kalyan discovers Latisha unconscious in the bath and frantically begs her to stay with him.
A soft splash sounds as Kalyan pulls Letitia's wet arm from the bathtub water. Holding the unconscious pink-haired woman, Kalyan desperately demands a doctor be brought immediately. The silent, luxurious guest room stands empty, contrasting with the previous chaos.
A soft click sounds as Philip realizes Latisha likely overdosed on painkillers before falling asleep.
Philip confirms Latisha is stable, advising the silver-haired duke he can rest assured for now.
Concerned staff listen as Philip explains that her body temperature plummeted from the cold water.
Maids scurry about the bedroom to assist with the ongoing medical emergency.
A sudden loud crash sounds as the staff continues tending to the unconscious Duchess.
Philip reflects on how everyone missed the signs of Letitia's worsening illness despite their shock.
Kalyan is overwhelmed with guilt while Philip explains the dire state of her health.
Standing in the pouring rain, the gray-haired man looks on with a somber expression.
The gray-haired man offers help, but Kalyan fiercely forbids anyone from touching his wife.
Kalyan turns his back on the group, coldly ordering everyone to leave the room.
The gray-haired man looks dejected as he prepares to follow the Duke's command.
With a soft tap, the gray-haired man leaves medicine behind, urging its use.
The staff departs with a heavy thud sounding, leaving the couple in tense silence.
Heavy footsteps echo down the hallway as the attendants finally retreat from the room.
Kalyan startles the blonde man with glasses, who quickly responds with fearful respect.
The silver-haired Duke demands to know if there's any progress toward a cure.
Philip apologizes for the lack of progress, sparking Colleen's intense anger and frustration. Philip bows low, admitting he has no excuse for his inability to save her.
Colleen ignores the apologies, commanding Philip to use any means necessary to save Letitia.
Philip pledges to try his best, but Colleen insists that success is the only option.
Philip hesitates before attempting to bring up another troubling concern regarding Letitia.
Philip warns that the Duchess seems to have completely lost her will to recover.
Philip notes her lack of attachment to life, but Colleen abruptly commands him to stop.
A soft click sounds as the door closes, leaving Colleen alone with his box.
A soft creak echoes as Colleen watches over the bed where Letitia lies still.
Letitia shivers in her sleep, murmuring about the cold as she remains unconscious.
Colleen remains vigilantly by Letitia's side in the darkened, ornate bedroom.
A heavy thud sounds as Colleen settles onto the edge of the bed. A warm fire blazes in the hearth, filling the room with flickering light.
A soft rustle sounds as Colleen carefully lifts the unconscious woman, wrapping her in a blanket.
A soft rustle sounds as the shirtless, silver-haired man adjusts the blanket around Letitia.
Colleen tells his wife to not be offended as he tries to warn her.
Colleen sits on the floor, holding Letitia close to his bare chest for warmth. Colleen looks down at her, confessing his terror that she might never wake up again.
A plume of blue smoke rises as the magic suggests there is something more.
Looking down, the blue smoke swirls around the pair as Colleen tries to save her.
Colleen glares at the blue smoke, questioning if it appeared just to irritate him.
The magic residue claims it did nothing, leaving Colleen feeling highly suspicious.
The blue smoke inquires after Letitia's health, surprising Colleen with its ability to speak.
With a soft peck, Colleen kisses Letitia's forehead while holding her take. A low humming sounds as the magical blue trail drifts through the air. The blue smoke winds through the room, its presence feeling both mystical and strange.
A trail of blue magic spirals across the white void in a graceful arc.
A soft top sounds as raindrops hit the window while the storm continues outside. The ornate fireplace crackles steadily, casting a warm and flickering glow across the quiet, luxurious room.
Letitia stirs slightly within the soft blanket, her pink hair fanned out against the silver-haired man's chest.
Letitia's bare feet twitch beneath the edge of the blanket as she begins to regain consciousness. A look of sudden realization crosses Letitia's face as her eyes fly open in the dim light. Letitia whispers Callion's name as she looks up at the shirtless, silver-haired man holding her close. A vibrant red-haired woman with glowing green eyes and a determined expression is featured in a promotional display.
Letitia looks at Callion with a visible blush, questioning why they are currently in such an intimate position.
Kayleen explains that her falling asleep in the bathtub caused a major uproar and asks if she remembers.
The silver-haired man looks incredulous, questioning her decision to simply doze off while in the bath.
Client scolds her for ignoring her medication dosage while Letitia looks away with a guilty and defensive expression. Letitia looks toward the fireplace, wondering if the strange smoke she saw earlier was only a hallucination. A soft, rhythmic sound catches Letitia's attention as she wonders what the repetitive noise could be. Outside the window, heavy rain begins to lash against the glass while the couple sits together on the floor.
Letitia reacts with a look of sudden alarm as she identifies the distinct and rhythmic sound of rain.
Concerned for his health, Letitia cups Colleen's face and asks if he took his required sedatives. Colleen apologizes for being unaware of her cold sweat while he was resting easy without knowing it was raining.
Letitia pauses, her expression softening as she processes the silver-haired man's sincere and vulnerable apology.
Colleen leans his head against her shoulder, questioning which of them should truly be worrying about the other.
Letitia flinches as their faces come close together, her eyes wide with shock at the sudden, intimate proximity. Letitia claims she took her sedative and insists her sweat is only due to the heat of the room. Letitia notes her only discomfort is the lack of a neutral place to rest her gaze while so close.
Letitia bashfully pulls the blanket higher as the chibi silver-haired man watches her with a stoic, unreadable expression.
Colleen gently pats Letitia's head as she leans into his touch with a peaceful and content expression. Numerous wrapped gift boxes are piled high in the corner of the room, illuminated by the fire's glow.
The fire continues to burn steadily in the ornate hearth, filling the room with a sense of artificial peace.
Looking at Letitia from behind, Colleen laments to himself how difficult she is for him to truly understand.
Colleen is filled with silent desperation, questioning what he must do to make her truly want to live.
Narrative text reflects on how all the rare and precious gifts Colleen gave Letitia were ultimately meaningless.
Colleen reflects on his own arrogance for believing he could secure her presence with mere material things.
A dark internal thought questions if having her within reach as an empty shell is truly enough. Colleen looks down at her with an expression of deep guilt, silently berating himself for his previous mindset.
Letitia asks Colleen what he is murmuring about and if she did something to upset him.
Kalian makes an excuse about the fire going out and the floor being cold to justify moving to the bed.
Letitia looks around in a chibi form, noticing the fire is low and the rain has finally ceased outside.
Kalian confirms the rain has stopped and tells her to hold on tight as he prepares to move her. Kalian asks if she is hurt or has a headache, feeling relieved when she says she is fine.
A bright light suddenly catches Kalian's eye, emanating from a book left on the table near the bed.
A plain, leather-bound book rests alone on the dark table, shimmering with a faint and mysterious light.
In a memory, Letitia explains that she enjoys the library because the storybooks there are quite interesting.
Kalian reaches out one hand to pick up the book as he continues to carry Letitia toward the bed.
Kalian carefully lays Letitia down on the ornate bed, still holding the mysterious book in his other hand.
Kalian realizes she wasn't lying about her interest in the book, having previously thought it was just an excuse. Several loose sketches of flowers and animals suddenly spill out from between the pages of the book.
Kalian looks down in surprise at the detailed drawings of a cat and a rabbit that have fallen out.
Letitia blinks sleepily from the pillows, questioning what he is looking at so intently.
Kalian holds up the fallen sketches, identifying them to Letitia as the pictures she must have drawn.
Letitia panics and tells him to stop looking, but Kalian praises her talent and the quality of her work.
Blushing deeply, Letitia buries her face in the blanket and accuses him of only teasing her about her drawings. Kalian turns serious, mentioning Philip's report about her request for an antidote to be sent to Telshi village.
Letitia huffs at how fast news travels and asks him how he plans to handle the wary villagers.
Letitia proposes reaching the children by using storytellers and interesting storybooks.
Letitia asks the shirtless, silver-haired man if he considers her idea to be strange.
Kalian supports the plan, suggesting they add a magical potion to the story to represent the antidote.
The pink-haired chibi is thrilled that the children will drink the cure without any suspicion.
Huddled beneath her blanket, Letitia dejectedly admits she has no talent for writing interesting stories.
Kalian suggests they have the original author fix it, but Letitia worries about the time needed to find them.
Letitia is confused when Kalian implies the author is sitting right in front of her.
Amidst shimmering blue flowers, Kalian reveals to his wide-eyed wife that he was the one who wrote the storybook.
Luminous blue flowers bloom beautifully, reflecting the magical atmosphere of the Duke's story.
A grand white carriage travels along a stone path past lush green foliage in the bright sunlight.
Nero, the orange-haired man with cat-like ears, looks thoughtfully at a document in his hands.
Nero lets out a soft, tired sigh as he continues to review the reports.
Shouting with surprise, Nero asks the monocled man if a rare bird just flew past the carriage window.
Holding a glowing crystal orb, Nero reports that a mysterious storyteller appeared in Telshi village.
They discuss how unusual it is for such a storyteller to linger instead of vanishing without a trace.
Narrative text explains that the storyteller gives out a potion that makes everyone who drinks it healthy.
Nero is struck by a sudden realization that the mysterious village potion is actually the antidote.
The long-haired, black-haired man, young Master Esta, notes the clever way the Duke is distributing the medicine.
Esta is amused by his new business partners and resolves to work just as hard as they are.
As the carriage arrives at a grand estate, Nero offers to announce the monocled man's visit.
A transition bubble notes that a formal introduction will not be necessary for this meeting.
The brown-haired man, Isis, watches from the garden as the ornate carriage pulls into the driveway.
With a soft top sounding, the visitor is greeted respectfully as the young master of Esta.
The man with the monocle asks Isis for permission to enter the mansion grounds. Young Master Esta offers a bright and confident smile during the greeting.
Inside the mansion, the guest explains that the illness spreading in the capital is not a plague.
Isis reacts with skepticism, questioning why they should believe such a bold claim.
The older blonde count scolds his son for his lack of manners while the guest calmly sips tea.
Young Master Esta argues that they have no other viable way to handle the current crisis.
Isis stands up in a rage, refusing to cooperate with anyone from the Godwin family.
A sudden, loud bang sounds as a hand slams down onto the dark table in anger.
The blonde count apologizes for his son's fiery temper while the guest remains entirely composed.
The count admits that he also finds the guest's information to be lacking in credibility.
With a clever smile, the monocled man suggests that literal truth is not the most important factor.
He warns that the count's family reputation is falling and his shipping business may suffer.
Sitting amidst dark flowers, the monocled man notes how sensitive nobles are to public opinion.
He presents a document detailing the items needed for the mass production of the antidote.
The count questions how Esta could have possibly uncovered such a hidden secret.
Young Master Esta asks if he neglected to mention the identity of the person who found it.
A transition bubble reveals that the Grand Duchess was the one who uncovered the truth. The blonde count and brown-haired Isis are stunned into silence by the revelation.
Isis laughs derisively, dismissing Letitia as a good-for-nothing who couldn't possibly be responsible.
Standing up to leave, the monocled man mocks Isis for his own lack of discernment regarding the Duchess.
As he walks away, the monocled man claims to be honored by their concern for his family relationships. Isis taunts him, suggesting he should be more worried about his own ducal house. With a soft scuff sounding, the monocled man's white boots come to a sudden halt. Turning back, he hears Isis mention the rumor that the monocled man's father is gravely ill.
Young Master Asta smiles warmly, expressing honor that Isis cares about his father's health.
He bids them farewell, promising to pass their regards along to his ailing father as well.
With a sudden, loud creak sounding, the two men walk out through the grand double doors.
Peter, the monocled man, tells Nero it is time to depart for the ducal residence.
The long-haired Peter internally admits to Nero that he already misses the fun of the North.
Peter explains they must spread the antidote quickly so he can justify returning to the North.
Ignoring a comment, Peter urges them to move quickly as a bright light shines above them.
With a tired sigh, the orange-haired chibi Nero reluctantly agrees to follow his master.
At the Godwin ducal residence, a man questions why his brother went to the Count's home. The black-haired man in a red coat complains about the struggle of turning the Count away. His attendant, Patrick, sweatily asks the young master to lower his voice in the public garden. A young blonde girl suddenly interrupts their conversation with a soft, hesitant greeting.
The young girl stands shyly while holding a woven basket filled with white tulips. Hiding his disgust, the man in the red coat asks if he can have a flower.
With an eager expression, the girl holds out the basket and begs him to take it.
The man questions the lack of payment, but she insists she can pick more from fields.
Smiling falsely, the man internally mocks the flower's lack of pedigree and its smell of manure.
The girl encourages him to stay strong, hoping Lady Appels recovers from her illness soon.
Maintaining his facade, the black-haired man offers a polite thanks while his attendant watches. A rhythmic scuffing sounds as the man begins to walk away across the stone path. Dark thoughts reveal the man's cruelty as he mocks the girl for not knowing his secrets.
Walking away, the man resolves to play along with the public's naivete for the time being.
Narrative text details the rise of the illegitimate son's reputation through his fake devotion and care.
The man in the red coat smirks, noting how his family position is rising through lies.
With a sudden, quick thrust, he orders Patrick to throw the filthy flower basket away.
Disgusted, the man claims the stench has clung to him and demands a bath be prepared.
The man stops in surprise as he spots his brother, the monocled Peter, standing nearby.
Peter asks about the flowers, while the younger brother nervously explains they were just from the street. Peter explains his early return was due to the constant urging of the young Master Asta.
Dark energy swirls as the younger brother wonders how Peter already knew about his recent visit.
A transition bubble appears amidst blue static, abruptly demanding that the current conversation stop.
Peter leans in, thinking to himself that his little brother will never be able to surpass him. Peter takes the basket, noting that the flowers are perfect for visiting the sick after all.
The younger brother shouts that he is now a secretary and entrusted with work by their father.
Walking away with the basket, Peter internally laments that he still cannot stand being in this house.
A faint, shimmering blue glow begins to emanate from the basket handle in Peter's hand.
Blue magical energy swirls around the exterior of the grand mansion under a bright sky.
With a quick knock sounding, a servant announces the arrival of the young master at the door.
Peter stares silently as the servant gives him permission to enter the private room.
Gripping the ornate handle, Peter questions if his father is too ill to even offer a response. The door opens with a soft click, revealing a dark room where a figure lies in bed.
A mysterious voice suggests that everything will be understood once the scene is witnessed firsthand.
The dim light from the hallway spills into the dark, silent bedroom of the ailing man. Walking into the dark room, Peter notes how much the man in bed has changed. Peter approaches the bed, identifying the basket of flowers as a simple gift for his recovery.
A mysterious blue light pulses from the white flowers resting in the woven basket.
The silver-haired father yells at Peter, demanding to know why he met with the Grand Duke.
Peter smiles thinly, advising his father not to get worked up in his current weak condition.
Peter suggests the anger is justified given what the man did to the late Crown Prince Kendrick. Looking startled and defensive, the father claims he has no idea what Peter is talking about.
Peter pours water while asking if his father is now feeling ashamed of his past actions. As the liquid pours with a splashing sound, Peter accuses his father of killing the Crown Prince.
A memory shows a horse rearing in terror, caused by stimulants the father placed in its water.
The silver-haired Duke furiously warns Peter to stop bringing up the family's secret past.
Peter mentions their spice market monopoly while placing a pitcher down with a soft top sounding. Scolding his son, the Duke threatens to replace him with Patrick as the rightful heir.
Peter admits he has no desire to inherit the family and ends the argument.
Reaching for a hidden item, Peter mentions bringing something entertaining for his bedridden father. Mysterious whispers fill the dark room as the Duke looks on with a troubled expression. Peter holds up a glowing brooch, hoping his father enjoys the expensive gift. The Duke reacts with panic regarding a betrayal, while Peter remains calm and defiant. Peter threatens to go public with their secrets as a soft click sounding follows.
Placing a small bottle down, Peter instructs his father to drink it from the start.
A rhythmic scuffing sounding echoes as Peter walks away, leaving his father alone in the dark.
The Duke shouts that Peter is just as corrupt as the rest of the family.
Peter stops abruptly, acknowledging the truth of his father's words with a cold smile.
A brown-haired servant greets him, but Peter dismisses the concern and sends him to the Duke.
Walking away, Peter notes that his father appears completely exhausted from his ordeal.
Peter walks down the grand, silent hallway with a steady, rhythmic scuffing sounding. Standing before the family crest, Peter admits his silence makes him just as guilty.
Peter reflects that helping the Grand Duke is his way of dealing with his past. Peter admits that assisting the couple is merely a way to ease his heavy conscience. He resolves to have nothing to do with them once his penance is complete.
A quick scuff sounding follows as Peter's white boots come to a sudden, firm halt.
Soft magical energy begins to swirl around the long-haired man as he stops.
Peter's expression turns serious as he senses a powerful blue energy manifesting nearby.
Narrative text explains that a mysterious blue aura is currently enveloping the Tower of Shuten.
Clenching his fist, Peter realizes that someone has made a wish upon the clock tower.
Peter resolves to return to the north to uncover the truth behind this new development.
The scene shifts to a peaceful view of the village houses under a clear sky. A loud chime sounding rings out as the clock tower bells echo across the village.
Letitia looks out her window in surprise as the sound of the bell echoes.
Kalyan walks toward Letitia with a quick scuff sounding, asking what she saw outside.
Kalyan expresses disbelief that the long-stopped clock tower would ring on its own.
Letitia wonders why she would imagine such a thing, appearing slightly dazed and confused.
Letitia stares out the window while her long pink hair flows in the soft breeze.
Kalyan reports that the plague is contained and the North's reputation is finally recovering. Letitia is pleased to hear that their stories have reached the ears of those in the capital. Kalyan gazes at his wife with a tender expression as they talk near the window.
Wrapping a blanket around her, Kalyan listens as Letitia marvels at his secret hobby.
Set against a cute background, Letitia quickly clarifies that she meant her comment kindly.
Kalyan admits it's understandable to be surprised given his usual stern and serious face. Letitia asks the silver-haired man why he has a sudden interest in fairy tales.
Kalyan admits he doesn't like them, leaving Letitia puzzled as to why he writes them.
Kalyan reveals that he only started writing the stories because she wanted him to.
Narrative text explains he wrote for her because she loved reading them as a child.
A memory shows the couple sitting together, with Letitia dreaming of being a protagonist. Kalyan sits alone in a dark room, staring at a simple, glowing white urn.
Narrative text explains that he wrote to cope with his grief after losing Letitia. Kalyan admits he is unsure how the books returned with him through the regression.
Letitia is framed by beautiful light and flowers as she processes the romantic revelation.
A look of shock and realization crosses Letitia's face as she stares at Kalyan. Chibi Kalyan says she can go out once the doctor confirms her health is restored.
Letitia enthusiastically resolves to find the doctor and get her health clearance immediately.
The woman's light blue shoes click rhythmically as she walks alongside her companion.
Kalyan watches with a calm, expectant gaze as he waits for his wife.
A nearby voice confirms that her brief outing has been officially permitted. Kalyan asks if Letitia is ready while the blonde attendant confirms the maid's assistance.
Dainty white shoes step onto the red carpet, signaling her long-awaited arrival.
A rhythmic clicking sounding follows as Kalyan and his attendant turn toward the door.
Kalyan is momentarily stunned into silence by the beautiful sight before him.
A delicate blue gemstone brooch rests against the ruffles of his white collar.
Soft light and flowers frame a quiet moment as Kalyan breathes her name.
Letitia appears in an elaborate, ruffled pink dress, looking radiant yet incredibly shy.
The maids excitedly prompt their master for a compliment on her stunning appearance.
A heavy silence fills the room as Kalyan stares at her without speaking. Letitia remains perfectly still, feeling the weight of the awkward, quiet atmosphere.
Fidgeting nervously, Letitia worries that the new outfit is far too flashy for her.
Feeling self-conscious, Letitia offers to go change back into her simpler clothes. With a sudden, quick movement sounding, Kalyan stops her, insisting the dress suits her.
The blonde maid scolds Kalyan for his blunt and unromantic reaction to his life. A faint blush colors Kalyan's face as he realizes his lack of social grace.
A soft rustling sound follows as Kalyan reaches out to touch her pink hair. Kalyan firmly tells her there is no need to change her beautiful outfit. Covering his face in embarrassment, Kalyan struggles to find the right words to say. Blushing deeply, Kalyan finally manages to tell her that she is truly pretty.
The servants react with various degrees of shock and delight at his rare confession.
A horse's hooves sound rhythmically as the group begins their travel across the bridge.
Riding together, Kalyan encourages Letitia to lean back and relax during the journey.
He whispers a warning that riding so stiffly will cause her pain tomorrow.
Blushing, Letitia regrets not learning to ride, while Kalyan ponders his own strange feelings.
Kalyan looks toward the horizon, asking if she is comfortable with their current arrangement.
Kalyan reflects on his possessive pride regarding their first official outing as a couple.
A loud, spirited horse whinny sounding rings out as they pick up their pace.
With a sudden jolt and a firm squeeze sounding, Kallian holds Letitia closer.
Startled and blushing, Letitia apologizes for being distracted during the ride.
Kallian pulls her closer, telling her to simply lean on him if she feels sorry.
Letitia smiles to herself, deciding that she isn't actually sorry to be this close. A gentle, satisfied expression softens Kallian's features as they continue their ride.
Kallian asks about her desired destinations while Letitia considers the many possibilities.
Letitia points toward the distant skyline, expressing her wish to visit the clock tower.
Kallian questions her choice while she mentions a rumor heard from the young duke.
Letitia lists the bookstore and market as other places she hopes to explore.
Kallian watches her with a tender smile as she excitedly talks about their plans. Soft light illuminates the peaceful village square as snow begins to fall lightly.
Walking through the market, Letitia points out interesting items while Kallian follows closely.
Inside a quiet bookstore, Letitia explores the shelves while Kallian stays by her side.
The couple stands together in the falling snow, admiring the historic village buildings.
They stand close to one another as the winter air turns cold and crisp.
Standing before the massive structure, Kallian identifies it as the Tower of Shutin.
Letitia marvels at the tower's height, feeling as though it could touch the clouds.
A single, intricate snowflake begins to fall directly toward Letitia's wide-open eye. Letitia cries out as Kallian turns with a sudden, quick movement, sounding in concern.
Rubbing her eye, Letitia explains that something has gotten caught under her eyelid.
Letitia touches her face, confirming that her eye feels much better now.
A soft scuffing sound follows as Kallian leads the pink-haired woman toward the tower.
The woman's dainty white shoe clicks against the floor as she enters the building.
Standing within the vast circular chamber, Letitia gazes up at the high stone walls.
Looking around the empty room, Letitia observes that there is truly nothing inside.
Turning her head, Letitia notices something unusual and lets out a soft gasp sounding.
A small, weathered tombstone sits on the grass, illuminated by a single beam of light.
Approaching the grave with curiosity, Letitia asks if it is actually a tombstone.
A look of quiet contemplation crosses Letitia's face as she looks at the memorial.
A loud chime sounding rings through the air, reminding Letitia of their first meeting. Staring at the clock, Letitia realizes the sound is identical to the day she met Kallian.
Standing near the grave, Kallian explains that the tombstone belongs to his late brother.
Another chime sounding echoes as Kallian reveals his brother's childhood wish to visit. Kallian looks away as Letitia expresses her hope that Sir Kendrick is finally at peace. A moment of transition occurs as Letitia shifts her focus back to the man beside her.
A heavy chime sounding rings out while Kallian notices strange smoke rising from the floor.
Whiffs of glowing blue magical energy swirl around Kallian's legs as he stands perfectly still.
Beads of sweat roll down Kallian's face as he asks what is happening in shock. Kallian grabs Letitia's arms, frantically asking how she can see the magical smoke. Dazed, Letitia explains it is the first time she has seen the magic so clearly.
A quick scuff sounding follows as Kallian turns in confusion, wondering how this is possible.
Looking around the empty tower, Kallian curses the unreliable nature of magical traces.
A close-up reveals a faint, intricate snowflake pattern glowing deep within Letitia's eye.
Turning to him, Letitia asks if he has ever made a wish at the tower.
The magical sigil in Letitia's eye becomes even more pronounced as she waits for an answer.
Letitia repeats her question, asking if he once sought a wish from the tower.
Noticing his silence, Letitia worries that her question may have been too personal.
Kallian turns to her with a serious expression, questioning why she suspects such a thing. Letitia explains the young duke's theory that wishes leave a lingering magical trace on people.
Kallian watches her closely, his expression unreadable as she describes the smoke. After a long silence, Kallian finally admits that he did indeed make a wish.
A quick rustle sounding follows as Letitia reacts to his honest confession with pure surprise.
Letitia asks if he is truly okay, having heard that wishes demand a life in exchange.
Squeezing his gloved hand firmly, Kallian tells her that the rumors were likely exaggerated.
Letitia feels a wave of relief, assuming his wish must have been simple to grant. Kallian looks down, admitting he only wished to find something he had once lost.
The blowing blue smoke intensifies, partially obscuring the silver-haired man's face from view.
Surrounded by a warm, flowery light, Kallian softly confirms that he finally found it.
Letitia stares at him, wondering why he still appears to be searching for something more.
A sudden loud shout sounding from outside startles the couple, breaking the quiet moment.
A group of villagers argue loudly outside the building while an attendant tries to intervene.
Kallian asks about the noise, and the knight explains a heated argument between local residents.
A resident demands the knight use his authority to chase the opposing group away immediately. An angry shout sounding follows as the man complains about the disrespect shown to his grace.
Worried the fight will worsen, Letitia suggests they go outside and handle the situation.
Kallian agrees, noting that they cannot allow her hard work in the village to be ruined. A rhythmic clicking sounding echoes through the chamber as the couple heads for the stairs. A sharp scuff sounding follows as Kallian's brown leather boots hit the stone floor.
The sound of rhythmic footsteps continues as Kalyan leads Letitia down from the upper level.
Kalyan suddenly stops with a sharp gasp, sounding as a wave of pain overcomes him.
The blue magical energy mocks Killian, noting his temper and unusual personality.
Kalyan kneels in agony as the blue magical smoke continues to swirl around him.
The magical presence retaliates by calling him crazy after he insults it.
The entity rages about their contract and an apparent breach of its conditions. Holding his bleeding hand, Kalyan reflects on his narrow escape from a regression penalty.
A sudden shaky movement sounding follows as Kalyan struggles to remain upright while gasping. A rhythmic scuffing sound follows as Kalyan stands up, relieved Letitia cannot see everything. Kalyan realizes Letitia only sees vague magical forms, allowing her to stay calm.
Suddenly distracted, Letitia excitedly points towards something and shouts about a rabbit.
A young girl with light brown hair points forward while holding a plush rabbit.
The girl alerts a hooded man while he gently scolds her for pointing.
The villagers whisper in awe about the Grand Duchess's beauty and small stature.
Letitia is visibly overwhelmed and frightened by hearing the villagers' blunt remarks.
Letitia hides behind Sir Davis, begging the knight to stay perfectly still.
A quick scuff sounding follows as a hand reaches out toward the hidden Wuling.
Kalyan pulls Letitia close, offering himself as a much better hiding spot. Letitia insists she isn't playing hide-and-seek but is simply uncomfortable with the stairs.
Gently patting her head, Kalyan reassures her that the villagers mean no harm.
Letitia looks up as she feels the warmth of Kalyan's hand on her head. The child screams about a wolf eating a rabbit while the man scolds her.
The hooded man lets out a soft laugh, sounding apologizing for the disturbance.
The girl protests as her toy falls, but the man insists on leaving.
Kicking and screaming, the little girl calls the hooded man a big dummy.
Kalyan stands frozen in shock as he stares at the departing hooded man.
Kalyan suddenly shouts for the group to stop, causing the hooded man to pause.
Kalyan asks the man's name, which the girl and man confirm is Jeffrey.
The child proudly reveals that the man is a doctor who cured her village.
The man dismisses the praise, calling himself a wandering quack unworthy of attention.
Kalyan narrows his eyes, focusing intently on the man's hidden, weathered features.
Grabbing the man's arm, Kalyan points out a very specific mark on his wrist.
A quick scuff sounding follows as a metal pin strikes a nearby wooden post.
Justin lets out a soft, hearty laugh, sounding as he notes the rough welcome.
Kalyan smiles knowingly, remarking that the man always did prefer things a bit rough.
Sir Davis looks at the man, noting how much he has aged since their youth.
Kalyan offers a warm, respectful greeting to the man he identifies as his uncle.
The scene shifts to a quiet camp where a lantern glows outside a tent.
Justin prepares to treat a wound, warning that the lack of anesthesia might hurt.
Justin lets out a soft humph sounding as he calls the young man no fun. Kalyan demands an explanation for how his uncle became a wandering village doctor.
Justin, formerly a high-ranking Imperial Knight commander, notes Kalyan's familiar impatience.
Justin recounts being sent to a suspicious battlefield during the Empress Dowager's schemes.
He describes falling off a cliff and remaining unconscious for months after the battle.
A quick scuff sounding follows as Justin recalls the moment he finally opened his eyes. He woke up in a strange bed, surrounded by the remnants of his old life.
Justin explains he stayed away to protect his nephews from further political danger.
Kalyan asks why his uncle never returned even after the current emperor cleared him.
Justin laughs sadly, pointing to his scarred body as proof he was no help.
He reveals that while he survived the fall, his magical abilities never recovered.
Unable to be a magic swordsman, Justin chose to make a living as a doctor.
Kalyan looks serious as he asks if Justin knows a man named Philip.
The silver-haired man explains he knows Philip well from their medical studies together.
In the tent, Kalyan confirms that the man he brought is his wife's physician.
Letitia holds the brown-haired girl as Kalyan recounts failing to find a cure for her.
Philip tells the silver-haired man that a friend researched magic-related diseases and could help.
In the darkness, the man asks if anyone knows the whereabouts of this specialist. Philip notes they have been asking around, but the friend loves to wander.
Rubbing his chin, Justin contemplates the situation as he absorbs the new information.
Justin observes magic pooling in Letitia's head, shocking Kalyan before warning him to step back.
A close-up of Letitia's hat reveals pink magical energy tangled into a chaotic, glowing knot.
Gripping his sleeve tightly, Kalyan asks with desperation if the condition can actually be fixed.
Justin offers his help, provided Kalyan is comfortable with his current state as a doctor.
Under the starry night sky, a voice asks if the visitor is truly Sir Justin.
Justin teases Gorton about getting old, while the butler recognizes his playful tone immediately.
The masked maid tearfully asks why Justin stayed away so long if he was alive.
Justin explains that the broken clock's chime caused everyone to run outside in sheer surprise.
Letitia blinks her large pink eyes as she takes in the emotional reunion before her.
Philip interrupts the moment, stating that Letitia's medical examination must begin after her long absence.
Philip stands in stunned silence as he processes the revelation regarding the man named Jeffrey.
Kalyan tells Justin to follow him, while Philip realizes Jeffrey's true identity as royalty.
Turning to Kalyan, Letitia asks why Sir Justin is participating in her medical examination.
Callian looks ahead, explaining that Justin is exactly the specialist he sought for her illness.
Letitia's expression softens as she considers the hope this new physician might bring. Looking toward the stairs, Letitia feels a sense of quiet anticipation about her future health.
A swirling mist of light and particles fills the air during a moment of transition.
Standing in the ornate room, the doctor notes that the woman's condition is unexpectedly severe.
Philip scolds Justin for being blunt, but Justin insists on speaking his mind about the diagnosis.
The two men stand together in the room, reflecting the tension of the serious medical news. Smiling sadly, Letitia admits that everyone already knows her time is rapidly running out.
Letitia asks Callian if she can rest, despite his insistence that she eat dinner first.
Justin clarifies that he never said she was dying, only that her condition was currently bad. Surprised by the doctor's blunt but hopeful remark, Letitia reacts with a startled gasp. Justin explains that although her magic is tangled, they will find a way to untangle it. Stunned, Letitia gazes up with wide eyes as a glimmer of genuine hope finally appears. Seated alone in a bright void, Letitia contemplates the possibility of a longer life.
Letitia's hand tightly clenches the fabric of her pink floral dress in a moment of resolve.
A woven basket filled with light blue flowers and a red ribbon sits near the door.
The staff argues as they struggle to push through the vagueness of the current situation.
Letitia leans on Callian's back as a future with everyone she loves comes to mind.
Their hands meet in a soft, supportive gesture that solidifies their bond against her illness. The group gathers around Letitia and Callian, united by the news of a potential cure. A gentle, comforting hand-patting sounding follows as someone reaches out to touch Letitia's hair. Letitia's cheeks flush with a soft pink glow as she feels the warmth of the gesture.
Feeling invigorated, Letitia announces she wants dinner, prompting Callian to offer room service.
Callian's hand covers Letitia's as they share a quiet, intimate moment of relief and connection. Letitia smiles radiantly, inviting her uncle to join them so they can all eat together. Callian watches Letitia with a look of deep affection and newfound hope for their life together.
A small, warm smile touches Callian's face as he observes his wife's return to spirits.
The scene shifts to the next day as birds chirp amongst lush green leaves. Standing in the hallway, Callian remains perfectly still with a serious, contemplative expression on his face. Letitia turns her gaze toward a dark-haired man who watches her with a serious, intent stare. Surprised, Letitia asks if the current room preparations were really made just for her. Callian suggests a room with large windows and an easel to suit Letitia's hobbies. Letitia teases Callian, noting that his suggestions are incredibly specific despite her not agreeing. Callian looks at his wife with a steady, unreadable gaze as she laughs. Callian softly asks Letitia if she truly finds the new arrangement to her liking.
Letitia offers a bright, sincere smile and confirms that she loves the place.
A brief smile touches Callian's face as he acknowledges her positive response. A rhythmic scuffing sounding follows as Callian and Justin walk through the grand hallway. Looking out the window, a thought bubble expresses an unsettling feeling despite current successes. Justin warns that they should remain cautious and suspect a potential enemy trap.
Callian stares ahead with a grim expression, agreeing that the concern is valid.
A solitary thought bubble ponders the nature of a persistent and uneasy feeling. At a formal meeting, Callian asks the council to repeat their previous statement. A brown-haired man with a ponytail smiles cheerfully while addressing the group. The man clarifies that they were discussing the upcoming royal wedding.
A sharp exhale sounding follows as Callian massages his temples, overwhelmed by the topic.
In the garden, the maids excitedly ask Letitia if she heard the wedding news. Letitia is caught off guard, questioning if they are truly discussing her wedding to Callian. A maid notes that a date is set for next month, despite earlier ceremony delays. Letitia hums thoughtfully, her expression turning slightly pensive as she processes the news. She realizes that a wedding next month leaves half a year on their contract. The purple-haired maid insists that the entire territory is eagerly awaiting the grand celebration. Letitia privately considers skipping the event to save funds after recent dam repair costs. A quick intake of breath sounding follows as Letitia reacts to the maid's intense excitement. The maids wail dramatically, insisting that Letitia cannot simply ignore such a monumental occasion. A maid reminds Letitia of the emperor's vast wealth acquired through many successful wars. Letitia gives in with a soft laugh, finally agreeing to the maid's enthusiastic demands. Letitia invites the maids to help her choose a dress, sparking further celebration. From a high window, Callian watches Letitia interact with her staff in the garden. Sitting alone, Callian sips tea while continuing to observe the scene outside. Callian asks about Letitia's treatment, prompting Justin to tease him about asking so often. A sharp gasp sounding follows as Justin questions Callian's previous insistence on omitting the wedding.
Callian claims a ceremony isn't necessary, but Justin argues that weddings are about feelings. The staff and advisors shout in unison, refusing to accept Callian's dismissal of the wedding.
Callian rests his chin on his hand, looking pensive as he considers his uncle's words. Justin remarks that Killian cannot look away from Letitia, questioning the depth of his feelings.
Justin looks confused, asking why Killian is acting as if he doesn't understand the situation.
Cleaning his ear, Justin bluntly asks if Killian truly doesn't love his wife.
A quick scuff sounding follows as Killian's hand suddenly clenches into a tight, trembling fist.
Justin stops and stares, his expression shifting to one of intense scrutiny and doubt. Standing up abruptly, Justin asks if Killian is actually feeling embarrassed about his own emotions. Killian denies being embarrassed, claiming he only feels at ease when Letitia is nearby.
A voice notes that his eyes are overflowing with love whenever he looks at her.
Killian reaches toward the window, his hand silhouetted against the bright light of the garden.
He wonders internally if he is even capable of feeling such a beautiful and pure emotion.
Through the frame of his hand, Killian watches Letitia laughing with her maids below.
Clenching his fist, Killian admits his desire to keep her is closer to dark obsession.
Justin asks if Killian truly believes his feelings are merely a result of resentment.
Refusing to argue further, Killian firmly asks his uncle to leave the room immediately.
A quick scuff sounding follows as Killian grips the curtain, turning back toward the window.
Justin simply thinks it's better to stay silent than to see Letitia cry.
He notes it was obvious she'd worry unnecessarily if he revealed the truth.
The silver-haired doctor looks down with a somber and deeply contemplative expression. Justin explains to Killian that love doesn't always take just one form.
He describes love that can be quiet and unrecognized or intense like a storm.
A gentle potting sounding follows as Justin speaks of Killian's feelings toward Letitia.
A creaking sounding follows as the large wooden doors to the room slowly open.
A clicking sounding follows as Killian stands alone in the dark, silent room.
A tight gripping sounding follows as Killian's hand clenches into a trembling fist. Killian struggles with the idea of love from someone like him who left her to die. He credits his uncle for filling his head with these useless and distracting thoughts. Swirling blue energy and particles fill the space during a quiet moment of transition. The scene shifts to a rectangular view of the dark, starless night sky outside.
Lying in bed, Letitia wonders why Killian hasn't been seen at all today.
Letitia's large pink eyes reflect her loneliness as she stares upward at the ceiling.
The maids enthusiastically remind Letitia about the meeting where her royal wedding was discussed.
Letitia considers how a formal wedding would make them feel like a real couple.
Letitia pulls the covers up to her face, hiding her thoughtful and conflicted expression. She reflects on being genuinely married even after their one-year contract has reached its end.
A sudden thumping sounding follows as Letitia reacts to a glowing blue light appearing.
A soft fluttering sounding follows as a blue magical wisp dances through the air.
A rustling sounding follows as Letitia asks the blue whisk if it has returned.
Startled, Letitia watches as the magical blue energy gathers closely around her hands.
A quick rushing sounding follows as Letitia sits up to get a better look.
The heavy wooden doors remain shut, casting long, cool shadows in the blue light. Letitia stares at the magical energy, her expression turning soft as she considers her feelings.
A soft rustling sound follows as Letitia addresses the blue wisp named Parang.
She admits to the wisp that she initially hoped the visitor was actually Killian.
Letitia confesses that she felt disappointed when she realized it wasn't him.
A thought bubble reveals that she feels lonely and misses Killian when he's away. She smiles while imagining a future with him and wishing for lasting happiness.
A soft thudding sounding follows as Letitia falls back onto the bed in confusion.
Holding the blue wisp aloft, Letitia finally admits to herself that she likes Killian. A fluttering sounding follows as Killian sits alone at his desk reviewing official papers.
Killian notes that everything is moving forward smoothly now that the wedding is decided.
A thought bubble confirms that Letitia's medical treatment is finally showing steady progress. A gentle patting sounding follows as Justin's words about his feelings echo through Killian's mind. Letitia smiles radiantly, looking healthier and more vibrant than she has in a long time.
A soft thumping sound follows as a book is placed onto the round table.
A creaking sounding follows as Killian sighs deeply while leaning his head on his hand.
A creaking sound follows as Letitia enters the room and finds her husband working late.
A rhythmic clicking sounding follows as Letitia suggests they choose a wedding dress together.
A sliding sounding follows as she brings a catalog and Killian agrees to look.
Letitia looks at Killian with a nervous but hopeful smile on her face.
A fluttering sound follows as they flip to a page showing a grand wedding dress.
Killian turns toward Letitia, listening intently as she wonders if the dress is too flashy.
Letitia becomes flustered while Killian watches her with a calm and steady gaze.
A glancing sounding follows as Letitia asks Killian if he hasn't been sleeping all.
A rubbing sounding follows as Letitia notes that he looks very tired and exhausted.
A throbbing sounding follows as a pulsing vein appears on the side of Killian's neck.
Killian remains silent as a faint, pulsing vein appears on his neck. A warm, magical glow fills the room during this quiet, intimate moment.
Killian pulls Letitia into a sudden, deep embrace that catches her off guard. A quick gasping sound follows as Letitia questions his sudden display of affection.
A tight gripping sounding follows as Killian clenches the fabric of Letitia's dress.
Letitia winces in pain and confusion after Killian suddenly bites her bare shoulder.
Letitia notices the visible mark Killian's teeth have left upon her pale skin.
Feeling distressed, Letitia demands an explanation for his inexplicably rough and strange behavior.
Killian explains that his actions were based on advice regarding how to show affection.
He suggests that his behavior was meant to be a physical expression of love.
A soft sighing sounding follows as Letitia blushes deeply while processing his bizarre claim.
Letitia argues that such acts are only appropriate for couples in a real marriage.
Killian proposes that they finally move past their contract and become a real couple.
Letitia tries to dismiss his suggestion as a joke, feeling overwhelmed and highly uncertain. Killian looks her directly in the eyes, firmly insisting that he is completely serious. Letitia asks if he only likes her because of her success as his duchess.
Killian asks if she would prefer him to marry a different noblewoman instead.
Letitia clenches her hand while stating that he must eventually find a true bride.
Killian shuts down the conversation, claiming he has no desire for further marriage complications.
She questions whether he intends to leave his wife's position empty after their contract.
Killian reaches out and gently covers her hand with his own in silent reassurance.
Letitia worries that his current kindness will cause her to develop false, painful hopes.
Gathering her courage, Letitia directly asks Killian if he actually has feelings for her.
A sepia-toned memory depicts Justin explaining that love takes many different, unrecognized forms.
Killian flinches as he is overcome by intense guilt regarding his past treatment of her.
A heavy, dark atmosphere surrounds Killian as he dwells on his many deep regrets.
Killian internally admits that he feels he has lost the right to love her. Killian attempts to answer her question but stops himself, struggling with his internal conflict.
Letitia waits with a hopeful and vulnerable expression for him to finish his sentence.
Letitia considers how most noble marriages are loveless arrangements based only on status.
She clarifies that she doesn't think Killian is the type to seek love elsewhere. Letitia shares her fear that a marriage without love would eventually destroy them both.
Killian looks at her with a devastated and pained expression, unable to provide comfort.
Attempting to ease the heavy tension, Letitia announces she has finally chosen a dress.
Letitia shows Killian a picture of the simple, modest wedding dress she has selected.
Letitia reveals she chose the plainest dress to save the best for his future.
A sharp clanking sounding follows as a training session begins at the outdoor barracks. A sharp clashing sounding follows as Killian aggressively practices his swordsmanship in the sun. Two knights watch their lord, noting that he has been in a terrible mood.
The knights discuss their concerns about Killian's recent uncharacteristic anger and distance from them.
The ponytailed-haired knight suggests that Killian's troubles are related to his relationship with Letitia.
A sudden yelling sounding follows as the knight becomes defensive about his lack of information.
A soft clicking sounding follows as the knight expresses frustration over Killian's lack of trust.
The knight feels hurt that Killian won't share his burdens despite their close working relationship. His companion looks on with concern and confusion at the vice commander's sudden emotional outburst. A rhythmic clicking sounding follows as the chief butler arrives at the barracks in haste. The butler urgently requests that the vice commander bring him to see Killian at once.
Killian stops his training and turns to ask what news requires such an immediate interruption.
A soft sliding sounding follows as the butler reveals that Duke Godwin has passed away.
The butler adds the chilling detail that rumors of murder surround the Duke's death. Killian asks with a look of disbelief who the primary suspect in the murder is. A trembling hand grips the edge of a surface as the shocking news is processed. Standing still in the dim light, someone's shoes remain rooted to the spot during the silence. A dark notification announces that young Master Esta has been detained as a potential suspect. The brown-haired knight looks on with an expression of deep concern and mounting tension. A soft scritching sounding follows as Letitia sits at a desk focused on her writing. A formal wedding invitation is prepared, specifically addressed to the house of Count Esta. Letitia holds her quill, wondering if she should even bother sending the invitation given the circumstances. A rhythmic topping sounding follows as Letitia considers Killian's decision regarding the Imperial Palace.
Letitia stares forward with a blank, contemplative expression, lost in her own complicated thoughts.
She remembers a past conversation with Killian where she looked at him with a gentle smile. A soft muttering sounding follows as Letitia quietly speaks her husband's name under her breath. Letitia reacts with shock as a large, unsightly ink blot suddenly ruins her important letter. Feeling dismayed, she decides the ruined invitation is unsalvageable and plans to send a different one. A soft creaking sounding follows as the blue magical wisp peeks through the opening door.
Letitia warmly greets the blue wisp named Perong, asking if it has come in Killian's stead.
Looking adorably confused, a chibi-style Letitia watches the blue magical energy spin through the air. A soft whooshing sounding follows as the blue magical wisp suddenly flies back out the door. Letitia looks up in surprise, asking the wisp if it wants her to follow its lead. A floral-patterned chapter title card formally announces the beginning of the story's 37th chapter. A rhythmic clicking sounding follows as Letitia follows the glowing wisp down the long, dark hallway. She stops in her tracks, realizing that the wisp has led her directly to Killian's office. Standing outside the door, Letitia questions how their lives became so incredibly chaotic so quickly. A soft sliding sounding follows as Letitia overhears the butler mentioning Esta's visit to the Duke. The butler continues his report, describing how a heated argument preceded the discovery of the body.
Through the doorway, Letitia sees Killian seated with the chief butler and a stern-looking knight.
Peeking through the gap, Letitia wonders if there's any physical proof that her brother harmed the Duke.
Killian defends Isis, asserting that the young man is completely incapable of such a horrific act. The gray-haired butler expresses a moment of relief, assuming that he will soon be released. Killian shakes his head, stating that the political situation will not be resolved that easily. Looming shadows of thorny branches accentuate the gravity of the investigation into the entire family. A close-up shows a hand holding a document marked with the Emperor's official and imposing crest. The butler reacts with alarm, suspecting that the Empress Dowager is orchestrating another malicious scheme. Narrative bubbles express frustration over the injustice of dragging Lady Letitia into these dangerous affairs. The brown-haired knight warns that they will surely attempt to entangle Killian in the controversy next.
Killian reflects with somber regret on how he failed to expect such recklessness from the Empress Dowager.
While holding a cigar, Killian asks for the current location of the late Duke's remains. A sudden shuffling sounding follows as the knight asks what Killian intends to do next. A soft crushing sounding follows as Killian puts out his cigar, deciding to answer the summons. A rhythmic thumping sounding follows as Killian walks away, seeking to clear his messy thoughts. Killian notes that the Emperor personally sent him a teleportation scroll to facilitate his quick return.
Killian instructs the butler to withhold this news from Letitia to spare her from worrying.
A soft clicking sound follows as Killian reaches for the door, repeating his desire to protect her. A creaking sounding follows as Killian leaves, entrusting the butler with taking good care of Letitia. Killian stops abruptly as he opens the door and finds Letitia standing directly in front of him. Letitia stares at Killian with wide, stunned eyes, having overheard their entire secret conversation. Killian asks in surprise why she is there, and she explains the wisp guided her path. Killian grits his teeth in frustration, internally cursing the wisp's deceptive behavior in bringing her there. Letitia confirms that she heard everything, starting from the details about Killian's older brother's situation. Killian gives Letitia a parting instruction to stay healthy and not neglect her treatment while he's away. Letitia begs Killian to let her come along, but he refuses, citing the extreme danger of the situation. Letitia insists she can help with antidotes or ledgers and promises not to be a burden. A sudden grasping sounding follows as Killian reaches out and firmly takes hold of Letitia's shoulder.
Letitia's long pink hair flows as they stand in a moment of intense, silent conflict.
Killian pulls Letitia into a sudden protective embrace, holding her close against his chest. Looking down at her, Killian speaks with a somber tone as he makes a heartfelt request. Killian begs Letitia to stay behind, his voice filled with a desperate need to keep her safe. The scene shifts to the Imperial Palace as evening falls over the grand golden spires. A rhythmic tapping sounding follows as someone paces back and forth across the ornate floor. The Emperor paces nervously, worrying that his secret letter hasn't reached Killian in time to warn him. A soft gasping sound follows as the Emperor suddenly stops, startled by an unexpected arrival.
The Empress Dowager enters, regally informing the Emperor that their guest will arrive for dinner shortly.
Forcing a strained and submissive smile, the Emperor agrees to follow his mother to the dining hall. A rhythmic clicking sounding follows as the two royals walk together through the palace's grand, silent corridors. The Emperor remains tense, internally certain that his mother has detected his attempts at secret communication. Narration reveals that the Emperor's messenger birds were found dead and surveillance on him has increased. A sharp clenching sounding follows as the Emperor clenches his jaw, fearing his mother intercepted his plans. The Empress Dowager stands with her back turned, her cold and calculating presence looming over the room. A soft creaking sound follows as the doors open and the Empress Dowager warmly greets her guest. A close-up highlights the guest's formal attire, featuring a brooch with a large green jewel. The guest is revealed to be Peter Godwin, the son and successor of the late Duke. A soft clattering sounding follows as the table is prepared for a lavish, high-stakes banquet dinner. A soft clinking sound follows as an assortment of fine roasted meats is laid out. The Emperor sits at the table, looking deeply uncomfortable and unable to enjoy the meal.
Holding a fork, the Empress Dowager pointedly asks the Emperor why he isn't eating his food.
The Empress Dowager smiles thinly, questioning if the meal she prepared doesn't suit the Emperor's taste. She continues her pressure, reminding him that his mother went to great lengths for tonight's banquet. The Empress Dowager asks why he can't find enjoyment in eating on such a supposedly fine day. Leaning in, she demands confirmation from him, her gaze sharp despite her outward smile. Peter Godwin sips his wine while observing the tense interaction between the two royals.
Peter points out that the Empress Dowager hasn't even completed the title succession process yet.
The Emperor observes that Peter has even begun to mimic his late father's specific mannerisms.
Dismissing the concern with a laugh, the Empress Dowager claims it's his seat soon anyway.
The Emperor questions whether the backlash from the rest of the nobility will be severe and unmanageable.
He worries about the public perception of Peter ascending to the ducal title so hastily.
A sharp slamming sounding follows as the Empress Dowager strikes the table in a sudden burst of anger. The Empress Dowager coldly asks if the Emperor remembers what happened only a month ago.
A memory depicts a ceremony where Peter stood before the throne to receive royal praise.
During the ceremony, Peter publicly credited the Grand Duke and his wife for the cure's achievement.
The Empress Dowager fumes, stating that Peter Godwin has sided with Killian and cannot be allowed.
The Emperor closes his eyes, claiming he is too exhausted by state affairs to listen to her.
A sharp clattering sounding follows as the Emperor stands, refusing to follow his mother's will.
A rhythmic thumping sounding follows as the Emperor begins to walk away from the dining table.
Walking away, the Emperor tells his mother she should withdraw this matter immediately.
The Emperor warns that she will risk making half the nobility her enemy by proceeding further.
A sudden shuffling sounding follows as the Empress Dowager stands and screams for the Emperor.
The Empress Dowager's face contorts with pure, unbridled rage as she watches her son leave.
A loud yelling sounding follows as the Empress Dowager lets out a piercing, frustrated scream.
A loud crashing sounding follows as the Empress Dowager sweeps everything off the table in a tantrum. Collapsing on the floor, the Empress Dowager blames Letitia for all her recent mounting annoyances.
The Empress Dowager sinisterly decides that eliminating the woman first is the best course of action.
Dark liquid pools on the cold dungeon floor in a moment of quiet introspections.
Isis complains about the noise, telling his companion that he is being loud enough to kill him.
Peter Godwin apologizes to Isis, noting that there is simply no solution to their current predicament.
Peter regrets not living more virtuously, while Isis rejects being lumped together, telling him not to pretend they are close.
Isis expresses deep frustration over going to the estate and adamantly maintains he really didn't do anything.
Peter suggests that his brother Patrick was likely the one who committed the crime against the Duke.
He recalls how their father attempted to kick Patrick out of the ducal house for cheating. Peter suspects Patrick disguised a concentrated poison as medicine and made their father take it. Isis questions if the victim should have died right away if a concentrated poison was used. Peter admits he initially shared that doubt and failed to suspect it, but realizes he was wrong. An anatomical diagram explains that the poison allows one to last 24 hours unless rising blood pressure speeds it up. Isis stops mid-sentence as a sudden, shocking realization regarding the Duke's death begins to dawn on him. He realizes the Duke likely died because Isis angered him the next day, accelerating the poison's effect.
Peter tells Isis to control his temper, while Isis realizes Patrick used a letter and settlement demands to frame him.
Peter tells Isis to calm down, stating he would have been detained somehow regardless of the day's events. Narrative boxes detail Peter's arrest for simply being present and the discovery during the investigation that he is a mage. Isis vents his anger, blaming Letitia's marriage to the Grand Duke for dragging their entire family into this mess. The two men sit in heavy, gloomy silence as they consider the bleakness of their situation.
Isis questions if it's a stretch to blame the Empress, but Peter insists a dog caused most of their family's misfortunes.
Peter recalls their mother dying on the way to adopt Letitia and blames the choice of taking a backwards road.
Peter reacts with stunned surprise when Isis mentions the location of the accident was Hercus. A dramatic thought bubble emphasizes the name Hercus, signaling its deep significance to Peter's past. Peter notes that Hercus is a location that the imperial family frequently visits for their holidays. Peter urgently asks when the Countess passed away, and Isis informs him it was decades ago. Peter reveals she died on the very day Crown Prince Kendrick suffered his own tragic accident. A memory shows the Grand Duke brothers running together through the green fields of Hercus. Narration reveals that the Grand Duke brothers were at Hercus when their father poisoned a stable's water trough. Peter remembers his father hiding behind a wall with a bottle near the horse stables. A text box creates a suspenseful transition, wondering if the Countess's accident is connected to this. A close-up shows a vibrant purple poison being poured into a wooden trough filled with water. A horse drinks the poisoned water near a carriage carrying the Countess and a young Letitia. Isis asks Peter what is wrong with him after seeing his sudden, intense reaction. Peter reacts with silent, sweating shock as he processes the horrifying truth he just discovered. A close-up shows Peter realizing his moral debt to the Grand Duke couple has increased significantly. Isis asks Peter why he's behaving so strangely as the truth continues to settle. Peter reflects again on how his debt to the Grand Duke and his wife has just increased. Peter alerts Isis that someone is approaching their cell from the dungeon entrance.
Footsteps descend the stone stairs toward the dungeon, their rhythmic arrival echoing through the dark hall.
Isis stares at the dungeon stairs with wide eyes as the shadows of visitors draw closer.
An ash-blonde man and an orange-haired boy arrive at the bars, and the boy calls out to his father.
Peter asks how they got in, and the ash-blonde man explains he bribed a soldier, but can't stay long.
Peter teases Nero for abandoning him, but Nero insists he stayed free so he could eventually help Peter escape.
The ash-blonde man asks about the situation outside, and Peter confirms everything is going as predicted.
The ash-blonde man reports Patrick's imminent succession in the Empress's schemes, prompting Peter to decide it's time to leave.
Peter reaches his hand through the iron bars, signaling his readiness to escape the cell.
Peter asks Nero if he brought the teleport scroll, only to receive a hesitant look. Nero admits he found the scroll in the young master's room but looks away with a nervous expression.
Peter reacts with pure shock as he learns that Nero sent the teleport scroll north.
The ash-blonde man explains they needed his grace in the capital quickly, leaving Peter wondering how he will escape. A rhythmic stepping sounding follows as the ash-blonde man descends into the dark dungeon.
Looking ahead with a stoic expression, he wonders if his grace will manage somehow.
Peter, Godwin, and Isis look through the bars, surprised to see the silver-haired man arrived quickly.
The silver-haired man asks what they are talking about, looking genuinely confused.
Nero explains that he used the teleport scroll sent by the Emperor to reach them.
Peter and Nero exchange looks through the bars as a new realization begins to surface.
Nero sheepishly clarifies that it seems the teleport scroll hasn't actually reached the north yet.
Peter Godwin stares at Nero with a silent, intense gaze of disbelief and frustration.
He tells Nero to just wait until they are finally able to leave this cell.
The dungeon corridor stands empty and still, lit by a single warm wall lamp.
The Imperial Palace's clock tower looms tall against the cold blue night sky.
Letitia sits alone on a velvet sofa in the library, looking lost in her thoughts.
A rhythmic walking sound follows as Gorton suggests she return to her room for now.
Letitia speaks Gorton's name, her eyes focused elsewhere as she considers the situation.
She recalls how Killian departed through a massive swirling golden portal of light.
She worries about what Killian plans to do alone without any escort to protect him.
Gordon explains that the Silvano Knight Order is already following the Grand Duke toward the capital.
He reassures her that he will return as promised and offers to stay with her.
A soft nodding sound follows as Letitia curls up, clutching Killian's dark coat tightly. A rhythmic stepping sounding follows as Gorton's brown shoes move across the carpeted floor. A rhythmic walking sounding follows as the butler leaves Letitia to her solitude in the library.
A sharp clicking sounding follows as the large wooden doors are pulled shut from the outside.
A close-up highlights Letitia's eyes, which are wide with a sudden, sharp sense of dread.
A soft rustling sound follows as Letitia's tight grip on the coat reveals something hidden inside.
She looks down in shock, wondering if the small book she found is Killian's notebook.
A soft sliding sounding follows as she pulls the tan leather-bound diary from the coat pocket.
A soft flipping sounding follows as Letitia opens the book, her gaze fixed on the pages.
A soft brushing sound follows as she touches the strange raised dots on the paper.
Letitia realizes that the imperial calendar she is holding is actually someone's personal diary.
She stands in the center of the room, realizing the diary is not what it seems. A cold sweat breaks out on Letitia's face as the true nature of the book dawns.
Two maids walk down a brightly lit hallway, startled by a sudden noise from the room.
A loud thudding sound follows as Letitia throws open the doors, shocking the two maids.
One of the maids calls out, asking her lady where she's going in such haste.
Running past them, Letitia shouts that she is heading straight for the study.
The maid yells for her to wait, insisting that they go to the study together.
A rhythmic thumping sound follows as Letitia runs, realizing the diaries are written as her own.
A loud crashing sounding follows as Letitia bursts into another room, her breathing heavy and frantic.
She realizes the diary dates are for months that haven't even occurred in their timeline. A loud thudding sounding follows as more books fall, revealing contents that defy all logic.
A sudden rushing sounding follows as the maids catch up, asking what has happened to her.
Letitia turns to them, whispering that the contents are exactly the same as before. She realizes Killian's fairy tale and this diary share the same story of a lost wish.
A crackling sounding follows as a memory shows someone asking Killian if he found his loss.
The memory concludes with Killian's simple, haunting confirmation that he did indeed find it. Killian smiles softly in the vision, his expression filled with a secret, knowing peace.
Letitia stands alone under the shadow of the clock tower, her expression one of pure horror.
She wonders what kind of wish she could have made to cause such a phenomenon.
Darkness closes in as the chilling implications of the shared diary and fairy tale linger.
An oppressive, dark mist rises, signaling a shift toward a more ominous chapter of the story.
Hands gently pull a thick blanket over the sleeping, pink-haired woman.
Gorton, Furel, and a maid stand in a dimly lit bedroom observing the sleeping woman.
The bedroom remains quiet as the pink-haired woman rests beneath the covers.
Gorton asks the maid if the lady is asleep, receiving a quiet nod.
On a nearby stand, Gorton wonders what about the book caused such a shock.
Turning to Faril, Gorton asks for his opinion, but the blonde man lacks answers.
Firo looks away as a somber mood settles over the group by God.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick tap sounding as a hand checks her temperature.
Firil notes the rising fever, while Gorton laments that the improvement was short-lived.
Firil questions if the treatment is correct, and Gorton insists they must persevere.
In a lighthearted moment, Gorton tells Firil to fetch medicine while he handles compresses.
Faril admits with a small smile that his worries grow as he gets older.
A sharp creaking sounding follows as Firil exits the room and the heavy door shuts.
The pink-haired woman remains in a deep, feverish slumber illuminated by soft light. A serene garden vision appears, featuring a white gazebo surrounded by lush greenery. A soft rustling sound follows as the pink-haired woman walks through the sunlit garden.
A silver-haired man stands alone in a garden conservatory, his back to the viewer.
He turns with a gentle, warm smile, his silver hair catching the bright sunlight.
A close-up shows the woman's black heel stepping lightly onto the green garden lawn.
She rushes toward the silver-haired man and throws her arms around him.
The two embrace tightly amidst the sparkling light of the garden. A yellow sun hat falls to the ground, forgotten during their joyful reunion.
The pink-haired woman awakens in bed, her eyes wide as the dream fades. Morning light streams through a window as she quietly acknowledges the new day. She remembers falling asleep in that position the previous evening. Peeking out from under the blanket, she processes her lingering thoughts.
Narration reveals that the kingdom of Shooten once prospered through the use of time magic. Sitting among research papers, Latricia realizes that turning back time explains Killian's wish.
She sits up abruptly, questioning why he would ever make such a choice.
She recalls a tender moment where Killian leaned over her and spoke her name.
Clutching the bedsheets, Latricia concludes that his wish wasn't motivated by her.
She whispers to herself, struggling to accept the truth of her realization.
Latricia sits alone on the bed, her long pink hair flowing over her shoulders. A week passes, marked by a clear blue sky and bright sunshine.
At the Grand White Castle, a voice calls out to the lady in surprise.
Standing in a lavish gown, Latricia is told the outfit is even more splendid than expected.
Looking at a dark suit, Latricia notes that Killian has yet to return.
Gorton watches her with a stoic expression, his hands clasped formally.
Gorton reports that the knights joined Killian yesterday, much to Latricia's relief.
A look of pure joy and relief washes over Latricia's face at the news. She decides it would be best to store the finished ceremonial outfit in Killian's her.
Latricia's expression suddenly distorts into a black silhouette as Gorton shouts in alarm.
A loud thudding sounding follows as she collapses and Gorton catches her.
The maid's eye widens in horror as she points out the presence of blood.
Blood flows from Latricia's trembling hand as she weakly asks for Sir Justin.
Latricia's mouth bleeds as she struggles to speak, her voice failing her.
Darkness consumes her vision as she realizes she can no longer see. Blood streams from Latricia's nose and mouth as she stares blankly in shock.
Crimson droplets fall through the dark, oppressive void as her condition worsens. A single drop of blood hits a liquid surface, creating a small, haunting ripple. Killian, cloaked in black, pauses on a cobblestone street and wonders if he felt raindrops.
The dark-haired man asks why he is spacing out since it doesn't look like rain.
He questions if it's truly all right to waste time after helping with the recent jailbreak.
He inquires about the reason for Killian's sudden decision to purchase several different lemon desserts.
Killian explains that Latricia loves lemon desserts and he is buying them before returning home. A cheerful ha-ha sounding follows as the dark-haired man calls Killian a devoted husband who delights the Empress.
Killian smiles warmly amidst a backdrop of flowers, simply hoping that Latricia will be happy.